Welcome back to the Film Tangents podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It is a certain day of the week, which I won't mention. I'll keep it secret. We are not live. And before I forget, please like the video, comment, and most importantly, subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you're notified whenever a new episode comes out. You'll likely be at work because we're all working men out here, men and women, excuse me.
Yeah.
And you know, we're spending a lot of time over there. So, hey, why not listen to Film Tangents on the boss's dime? That's what we always say.
Yes. I agree 100%. That's what I do. Every Monday afternoon. If you, the listener, are not aware of like when this episode's coming out, they always premiere. We always set them to premiere as if we're live, but obviously they're not live.
Right.
So we always set them to premiere on Mondays afternoon.
Yeah. That's the general, if all goes well, that's when it comes out generally. But sometimes we make like Bill Burr and it becomes the Thursday, afternoon, Monday morning podcast, as he says, something like
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Yeah, but everybody, welcome back. We are here, and something that Jake and I were talking about. Jake and I were reminiscing before we started recording. We were reminiscing of a time in which we took an anime class, right?
Yeah, in college.
We took an anime.
We went to film school, and so one of our classes was an anime class. Yeah, and it was run by we'll just say not a well-known, not like a household name or anything, but like a respected. You've heard of the projects, let's say that he's worked on in a technical capacity. We'll leave it at that.
Yes, and so we were in this class, and there was an anime class, and it came to the point of the end of the semester. Because once at the end of the semester, we had to do a project. And for this specific class, the project that it was assigned was that we had to do a film commentary. And Jake and I ended up choosing an animated film of both of our liking and interests because we thought, okay, we're going to be competent in terms of what we can say about this movie.
Yeah.
And Jake himself has expertise on the subject matter of the film. So I was like, okay, we're going to be able to talk about this, and Jake's going to be able to carry all of the factoids, that are needed for the commentary, and I can just fill in the gaps. And so we did. You want to pick it up for me?
Yeah. So what's funny about it is, like, you guys obviously know, if you listen to the podcast, you know us as doing commentary. We haven't done a film commentary yet. We do plan to, so just hang tight for that. We're gonna start mixing it up pretty soon. We'll keep the format, obviously the same generally, but we're gonna start throwing in some film commentaries in some special episodes. Where maybe we dive into, other film-related topics for the week, like a top 10 lists, things like that. Anyway, just that was a side note there. But what's hilarious about this is if you're listening to this, you know us as guys who talk about film. So you'd think that, obviously if you listen to this, you probably think we're halfway decent at it. And if you would think we would have aced this assignment, but apparently Mr. who shall not be named didn't like our commentary. Because, well, and what I was saying before we went on before we started recording here is that, like, because it was an anime class and because it was a school project, we felt like we had to, because let's be honest, like, commentaries, a lot of the times, people aren't necessarily talking about exactly what's on screen. They're talking about either related subjects or they go completely off topic, depending on the type of commentary that it is, right? It can be challenging to, especially if it's only two people, to just keep talking about the movie, especially when the movie's not, that interesting, which it wasn't. And so we did
Right.
our best, man. I guess I'm coping a little bit, but we what did we get, a C on that assignment? I think
Jake,
we got
we
a
got
C.
a C minus.
Yeah, we got a C minus on the assignment, and that was like one of the only grades in that class. So we ended up having
Yes.
both having a C for the class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so what we did was
No, dude, that was like that. No, that was like literally the only assignment for that class. 'Cause everything else was attendance and participation.
yeah.
It was literally just attendance, participation, and then the final assignment. So
Yeah.
basically, if you did really bad in the final assignment, that was gonna be a third of your total grade for the entire class.
Yeah. So
That was pretty bad.
yeah. So what happened was then Edward and I requested a meeting with Mr. So and so, and I knew, man, because I was like, I emailed the professor, I requested the meeting, and I knew the moment I knew that we had already lost the battle was when Mr. So and so replied, and he said something to along the lines of, "I would be delighted to!" Exclamation point. "I am in my office between
Yeah.
these hours. Does 12 o'clock work?" Exclamation point. Already, I knew we lost the
Yes.
battle because it was like so enthusiastic. It was like this guy knew, like, oh,
Yeah.
he was talking like a lawyer. Like he was like a lawyer who knows he's got the case in the bag. Where he was just like, oh, I would be delighted to
Yes.
hand over my client's saliva in this murder case. I would be delighted. You're just like, oh fuck. Well, he
Yeah.
knows something we
So
don't.
you're just gonna help me. Yeah, you're just gonna help me prove like my whole thing.
So
It's like
yeah,
it's like we wear what's his name, Joe Pesci in My Cousin Vinny, when he got like so excited that the other lawyer gave him like they just closed all his files. He's like, he just gave me all his files, and then like what is it? What's her name? The name of that actress, Marissa
Marissa Tomei.
Tomei.
Yeah.
When she when she tells him and she's like, yeah, they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to just give you like their files. It was like we're just like that in that instance. Or it's like, oh geez, like we thought we won, but we didn't win anything.
Yeah, yeah. I knew we had already lost. I knew we had already lost the battle. It was just like My Cousin Vinny. It was like that scene. Yeah, I knew. Yeah, it was like, I knew we already lost, man. So, it was like at that point, it was almost like I wanted to just cancel the meeting, but I also wanted to go down swinging. I was like, well, the meeting's already set.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go. And so the day comes for Edward and I to go meet with Mr. So and so. I almost said his name. And Edward, do you remember? Because my memory of us like actually walking there and stuff is vague. Do you remember anything about us actually like walking to his office or anything?
I do remember that. Yeah, I remember.
Do you?
No, I don't remember. I remember that. I remember us leaving, and then obviously we took the elevator. It's a 2-floor building. We took the elevator to the second floor, and
people who went to school with us know exactly who we're talking about.
Yeah, and so we walked to his office, but we had to go through like the reception. So in the reception area, we had to just be like, "Oh, we're here for Professor so and so, Mr. Fisher. We're here to see Mr. Fisher." And they're like, "Oh, Mr. Fisher's right down the line, and his room's open, so you can just walk right in." And so we did. We just walked right in, and he was just very ready.
Oh, he was beaming, dude. He was like, who he was like? He was like Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards. Like, dude, he might as well just
yeah. That's a good analogy.
Dude, he might as well have just had that Sherlock Holmes pipe out with the glass of milk and the freaking strudel, dude. Like, he might as well have had all that shit. He was sitting there smug as Hans Landa. And dude, we were both the French gentleman, I believe, in the country, who lives in the countryside with his family, with our with our hiding people under the floorboards, knowing that they were about to be gunned down. That was us. And so
Yeah.
so yeah, we go in, man, and we made our case. Like, hey, I thought our commentary was good, and
Yeah.
because of these reasons, and Jake had the knowledge, man. He had the knowledge on the topic. What do you say,
Yeah.
Mister Fisher? Mr. Fisher, and the professor, like, he's got that Hans Landa smile, and he just goes, "Okay." And I remember when you and I said, when we said we thought our commentary was good, he looked at us like we were from Mars. Like, I think he just thought that
He
was like
did.
the
I remember that.
shittiest
Yeah.
of shit commentaries ever. He almost acted like giving us a C
Yeah.
was like generous. I feel like dude, he
Yeah.
just did not
Yeah.
like that commentary. Like, because when we said, like, we thought the commentary was pretty good, like, we thought it was fantastic, he like looked at us like we were
Yeah.
from the planet Mars, like from
To
Nebula
this,
freaking 15.
no, dude. To this, to this moment, when I think about that story, that was like a big moment of kind of like defeating realization.
Yeah.
Like when I remember just like the expression that he made to that statement. It said it all. I was like, "Oh, this is over,"
It's all
This is
ogre now.
done, like, yeah, like if I hadn't realized it by that point, if I hadn't realized it before, that's the moment where I knew. I was like, "Oh, this is over." Like the fact that we can't even argue this point with this guy means that this is done. There's
Yeah.
nowhere to go from here.
Yeah.
Nowhere to go from here.
Yeah. So what's memorable about this is that for Edward and I is that after 10 minutes, he made it clear, like, this is what it is. Your grade is your grade. Like, I didn't like the commentary, and that's that. Right? So you and I were just like, all right, thank you, sir, for your time. Oh, no. Dude, we were there for another 50 minutes. 50, not 15, 50 minutes. Because every time we would agree with one of his points, our professor would go, "Does that make sense?" And we would say, "Yes, it makes sense."
Yeah.
Understood. We got it. And he would go, and he would do exactly this. He would go, "Okay, so another aspect of this," and we were just like, "Oh my God." And he would just go into like another aspect of it. It was so weird. He would just go, like, he was attacking it from all angles. Like, dude, again, like a lawyer, where it was just like he had Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Section 2, Exhibit D, Section 8. Like, it was fucking ridiculous. It was just like, oh my God, man. And like, dude, I remember just by the 55-minute mark, there was a part of me that just wanted to like hold my forearm up and like point to my watch and just like tap it. Like, got it,
It's
dude.
enough.
It's like, I get it. You're not changing the grade. There's no point in me being here anymore.
Yeah.
And either of us being here. Let us leave.
But that was like the that was like the hardest part of it all. That it was just kind of like, it was just kind of like, oh, you guys, by just initiating this contact, you guys wasted my time and you wasted your time. But I'm going to make sure that time is actually wasted.
Yeah.
We're not gonna do this as like a 5-minute thing where you guys go like, please, and I say no. I am going to literally spell out to you guys the critical failures, the critical error, and why this grade is not going up from a C. You guys are leaving this class with a C.
And here are the 50 reasons why. Like, you
that
thought,
goes down.
Yeah, it was so weird, man. And like, for anyone listening, just to make sure it's crystal clear, like, Edward and I were not arguing. I would dare say you and I did not argue any point past the 10-minute mark. Like, we tapped out by then. We were like, okay, we had a good, we fought the good fight. We tried. It is what it is. We're straight A students. We can take a C. Whatever, man. I still graduated with a 3.9 or something like that. I could take it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that was a defeat, man. It was a 2-on-1 handicap match against John Cena, and we
It was.
lost.
It really was. It really was a 2-on-1 handicap match against John Cena.
We were the Hart Dynasty.
You and I were Cody. No, dude, you and I were Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase without Randy Orton.
Yeah. Yeah, Randy Orton was.
It was just.
Randy Orton was back at the apartment.
Yeah, no, it was.
You know who I'm talking about.
It's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, it was just never meant to happen. It was like one of those headlines that they put on the thing, and the audience already knows. It's like, oh, this is just going to be a massive like defeat for Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase, you know. And it was
a slaughter. It was a slaughter, dude. Like it was like. Yeah. It was like I don't even know who started arguing. Was it me? Who began? Like who started as the spokesperson? Who spokesperson?
You started. You started as you were the spokesperson.
Yeah, I was like, okay. So I'm Ted DiBiase. He's a little bigger. I'm bigger than you Ted are. DiBiase. See, I'm Ted DiBiase. Like I started, you know, and I go in and John Cena just starts pummeling me. So then I tag in Cody Rhodes, and you know, then it was like, you know, he starts pummeling Cody Rhodes, you know, and then maybe they get like a leg lock on John Cena and put him in a little wrist lock, you know, and he's down and the audience is like, you know, doing that like thing where they're like, oh, get out of it, Cena, get out of it. You know, Cena was down for like a couple minutes and then, you know, just came back, 5 moves of doom, obliterated us. It was awful.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the last thing that we heard was just okay, and then beep.
Yeah, that was quite the defeat. But anyway, you know, moral of the story is you can try, but you might fail.
You can try,
but never try.
Fail, yeah, but
never fail. Does
no, but I think the caveat here lies in the prelogue or the what do you call that? Is that what they call that?
Prologue.
Yeah, is it the prologue or the prelogue? What happens after the fact?
Epilogue.
The prologue, right?
That's an epilogue.
The epilogue. Yeah, I was like, what the heck? Yeah, it's an epilogue. Yeah, so the caveat of it all lies in the epilogue of this story, and it is that we did try again. We tried again. We took the class another time, not the same class, but a class taught by the same Mr. Fisher, and we succeeded.
A+, baby. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's the real moral of it. But also, it should be noted that never in any of the classes that were given by Mr. Fisher did he require another audio commentary.
No, never. He said once was enough. Thank God, because I was.
But this is.
Yeah, I wasn't looking to do another.
I couldn't.
Oof.
No. But
I enjoy those, but not when they're graded. You know, it's like we'll do them on Film Tangents because we don't have anybody grading us. It's a lot easier,
right?
And we can talk about whatever we want.
But this is to let the audience know that if and when we do an audio commentary for a film, remember that you're listening to very mediocre commentary.
Yeah.
listening to C- commentary.
Yeah, I want everyone to write. Yeah, that'll be an inside joke on the channel. Everyone, every time we do a commentary, just comment C-.
Yes, please do. Which is interesting because, like, dude, he might have given us even like a lower grade than that for that commentary.
For the actual commentary. Yeah, because I know in the class we got a C+, something like that. I mean, you know, I never have gotten a D or an F in a class in my life. That would have been a fucking travesty, dude. I would have taken that shit. That would have been another animal. I would have kept fighting on that one, man. If it was like a
possible.
D,
it's possible. Like, it's possible that he gave us like a D or something like for that commentary, and then it just ended up rounding out to a C for the class. But for the purposes of this tale, and for the purposes of Jake and I's aging brains, let's say that it was a C-.
Aging brains. Yeah. at the ripe old ages of our mid-20s.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Dude, at this age that I'm in right now, I can't remember shit anymore.
Yeah.
I can't remember shit anymore.
Really? You remembered more about
I
that
can't
story,
remember.
I feel like, than I did.
Dude, but that's the thing. Like I remember at some point in time, I was very proud about my brain and my memory. Because I think at some point I was just able to just recall facts and events so clearly. But now I feel like I'm not capable of doing that anymore.
Really?
My powers have ceased. But I'm older than you are, so maybe I'll give you a year. See what
It's like
happens.
6 months older than me. No, you're like 11,
See
what,
what
11 months
happens.
older than me? You and I are the same age for like
Yeah, I think I'm
1 month
11.
out of the year, something like that.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we are. But I think makes a difference, dude. You'll catch up. You'll see.
Oh, no, wait. I don't think so, because you were
Oh. No, no, no. No, no, no. I think
you're
I
2
think
years older than me for 1 month out of the year.
yeah. For
Yeah.
1 month. For 1 month out of the year, I'm actually 2 years. So I think that means that I'm 13 months older than you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Simple
Yeah.
math would
If if
would
if we're good at math.
right, would tell us. Yeah. Yeah, this podcast is getting more like Bill Burr by the day.
Well, I feel like it's fair to say that Jake and I are drinking not water, but we're drinking substances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes when we record this podcast, dealing with
Yeah.
a couple of goofs.
Yep. Yeah, dude, I actually I remember when I when I first started working in sales, I was, started making a nightly wine habit because of the stress
Mhm,
that sales brings, but these
mhm.
days I've obviously calmed down and it never got out of control or anything, but yeah,
Mhm.
I drink like probably twice a month nowadays. It's because you just feel alcohol just makes you so sluggish after when you're done, like the
Yeah,
next day. I
yeah.
don't know, man. Just annoying.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the quantity, because like I feel like if you have like one of like like once a week or something like that, usually for me it usually just helps me just like unwind. Just kind of leave things behind.
Yeah, I feel that, man. Let me take a sip here. Um, yeah, man. One thing that caught my we don't have to drone on about him too much, but one thing that caught my eye that I just wanted to give an update on is our buddy Andrew
Yeah.
Tate. He
Oh, okay.
I think his trial is slated for July.
Hmm.
Andrew Tate trial date. Let me see. Andrew Tate. Yeah. So let me see. I don't remember where I heard that, but it is going to be like this summer, I believe. The trial is slated for um July, I believe. I don't remember the exact date. But I heard that they just have like mountains on him, just mountains and mountains of evidence. And he thinks he's clever, man. Like the BBC just interviewed him, and this woman's like
Mhm.
presenting him with quotes that he said. And he's just like, "Oh, you're just taking quotes out of context. You're saying that because I'm." He's like, "You're saying because I'm telling guys that they should get rich, I'm ruining guys the minds of men." It's like, no,
Mhm.
that's not what she's saying at all, dummy. She's saying that because
Mhm.
talk about pimp and hose, quote unquote, you're poisoning men's minds worldwide. But yeah,
Mhm.
people are still siding with him, man. It's weird, and if him and his brother, I've heard it's like they might be looking at like 20 years. I mean, if that happens, dude, they're just gonna be like these. They're just gonna become martyrs, dude. It's gonna be weird.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I don't know.
unfortunately.
I feel like it'll be funny though, because the internet would celebrate. So there's like a funny element in that. It just like celebrating the downfall of folks
Yeah,
that have been doing plenty of no good, but they're strange. They're like a strange thing because they just become such like a cult. They become such cult personalities.
Yeah.
And I really do feel like the best way to deal with like personalities and things such as that is just kind of just to let them be, like if you just let these guys be and they just die out on their own or on their own power, then I feel like that's like a different thing than, like you said, like martyrdom and just like
Mm,
making them into these like figures, of like, oh, these are the guys that were leading this like very strong movement for the sake of the youth,
mm,
now they're imprisoned,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's ridiculous, man.
I think a lot of people are like wielding their power that they have over other people or over like impressionable people very wrong. Like that continues to be like my ongoing impression of like Elon Musk. That I feel like Elon Musk is kind of corrupted, and when I think about him, when I think about the things that he does and says, he like expresses a lot of things with a lot of disregard. And I think about that sometimes because it feels like it validates that whole thing of like absolute power corrupts like absolutely, like that saying.
Yeah.
Because it's like at some point I feel like that guy was actually somebody that people actually respected and that he was actually doing good. But there was
Absolutely.
a point in time in which that was the case. And I think that point in time was also the point in time in which like Rick and Morty was like season 1 and 2 were out. It's like that same period of time. That was a nice period of time. That's like 2016, 2015, 2016. Um, but yeah, I think that guy has so much power. Like he's back to being the world's richest man, from what
Oh,
I
is he?
understand.
Who bumped him
Yeah.
down for a minute there? Who was it? Jeff Bezos?
He bumped No, he bumped himself down for a minute
Oh, did
when
he?
he bought Twitter.
Well, who bumped up though? Do you know?
I don't know. Like I don't believe it's Bezos. I think it's somebody else. I think it might be somebody like overseas. It might not be like an American
Oh, yeah, someone in
person.
Dubai. Oh, he's
Yeah.
is he? So he's number one again?
Yeah, from what I read in the news, he's back to being number one.
Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, yeah. Elon Musk. Oh, below him is Bernard Arnault. I don't know.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah,
Number Jeff Bezos is number 3. Fucking Jeff Bezos, dude. I hate
I
that.
see.
I hate that guy's face, man. Oh my god.
He has a funny face,
I
I think.
slap that guy's bald fucking face. Yeah.
Dude, have you seen pictures of him lately?
No. Why?
He's jacked.
Is he really? Well, of course he is. He can afford to
Yeah.
have like I mean, I'm not saying don't, I'm not making an excuse to not get jacked. Like, go get jacked. I'm trying to get jacked myself, but, um,
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, the guy probably has Jeff Bezos physique. Dude, that guy could probably buy muscles at this point. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, look at him. Yeah, good for him, man. He's looking like he's in some good shape. Look at him on his
And I
yacht.
know because people were making fun of Elon Musk um by comparing him and Bezos. Elon Musk is like in horrible shape. Like that guy's like in horrendous shape. People are making fun of him on Twitter, and I think he like responded to people making fun of him.
Really?
And he said something, but I don't remember what it was. It wasn't like mean and directed at Bezos. It was just like he like commented on something.
It's hilarious. Elon Musk will always probably look like shit. That guy doesn't take care of himself. Like
Yeah.
Elon Musk, he doesn't. He like
Well,
only sleeps like I think he only sleeps like 5 to 6 hours a lot of times, and sometimes like 2 hours. Like I don't think he. I think he just runs himself into the ground. Whereas like Jeff Bezos, I've heard he at least like his sleep schedule is like more like a normal person. Which sleep is like fucking huge. Like if you're not getting good
yes, it
sleep,
is.
you're not taking care of yourself. Period. That's like like if there's a pyramid, like sleep would be like the base of the pyramid. Like
Mm,
that's so,
mm.
so much depends on just getting enough sleep and getting quality sleep, like for everything else to
And it's
function.
it's it's interesting because the thing for Elon Musk is that he apparently is like obsessed and drinks a lot of diet Coke, I believe.
Oh yeah. Now see that'll make him pudgier too because that not to be an asshole, but like that because the thing about I stopped drinking diet stuff because yes, you're sacrificing like you're getting rid of sugar, but diet drinks lower testosterone, which like without
Yeah,
testosterone you can't build muscle and you'll just get squishier, so to speak.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
That's
yeah,
funny.
but no, I hear you, man. With these, I hear you with powerful people, man. I hear you talking about powerful people though. Like I've been rewatching a little bit of The Boys, which I've mentioned here before, but that show, I mean, definitely it's already one of my top 5 shows of all time. I just
Mhm.
I'd known about it for years now, ever since it first came out. It came out like our senior year of college, I remember. And I'd always kind of been meaning to watch it, but just kind of put it on the back burner. But The Boys is like one of the best shows like I've personally seen. I mean, it's a fantastic show. Shout out to Critical Drinker. It got a drinker recommends stamp of approval. So whatever that's
Is that
worth.
his highest rating?
Yeah, he has a series called Drinkers Recommend. The Drinker Recommends.
Mhm.
So I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Like that's definitely I value his opinion. Like so for me that's always a good indication. That's not why I went and watched it, um but anyway, that was like a side note. But The Boys does a really good job of commenting on that because all the villains are superheroes, ironically,
Mhm.
and they're all just
Mhm.
megalomaniacal characters. Me, I. And it's like, oh, they cause all this collateral damage, people die, and it's just like, oh gosh, deepest regrets, and then they go to some club and kind of laugh about it while they're doing lines off the coffee table. You know what I mean? Like, off a stripper's ass or something. Like it's that
Mhm.
show and the show really dives deep into that stuff. It's sickening, man, and just from what you see in the news and what you know about powerful people, The Boys like does a really good job of commenting on that on powerful people, and they do it through the lens of literal powers from superheroes as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
But that show does a really good job of commenting on that. But yeah, it's weird, man.
Mhm.
And that's the thing to kind of circle back to Tate for a second here, because I'm looking at a new article which I'll talk about in a second here. But like that guy his head just got way too big, man. You just get to a point where you think that you're just unfreaking touchable, you know? And that's the thing about Tate. Like there I've seen clips of him and his brother just being like, "Oh, if we have a lawyer, uh, we want you to make this shit go away. We throw money at you, make it go away. Make it go away." And they're just all like cocky and shit like that. This was before all the legal shit.
Mhm.
And it's just like you guys are so fucking cocky. You thought you were on top of the world. You thought you were above everything. And I'm taking a look here. There's an article that came out in the New York Post yesterday, and the title of it is "Latest Andrew Tate Accuser Says He Graped Her After Choking Her Out Unconscious." Great. Fourth UK woman accuses Andrew Tate of grape. Says she lost consciousness and feared she'd die. Great.
Mhm.
This is your hero, Tate fans? Seriously? I mean, it's just like it's so out of control. It's so out of control, man.
He's a strange fellow. Um, but it's interesting how algorithms work because he's profitable. People want to engage with him, because I see stuff about him, regardless of the fact that I don't follow him. I've never followed him. Maybe I Googled him once, I think, and I think I Googled him once. Like I've Googled him maybe a few times, and every time it's been like during the podcast or before the podcast.
Yeah.
But maybe just because we talk about the guy, and because like, I just get like stuff from him. I'll go on social media and I see stuff from that guy.
Oh yeah.
Because he's like posting on social media, he's doing things. So it's like it's interesting because I feel like the powers that be in terms of like what people consume it now has just become like algorithmic. These echo chambers that we create for ourselves, the things that we consume. So it's fascinating because an algorithm, I feel like it's like an immoral thing, or like not an immoral thing, but like an amoral thing, where it's like it doesn't really understand whatever it is that it's like recommending you. It's just recommending it to you because it knows that you have some kind of interest in it.
Yeah.
But that guy is algorithmic. He's like
Oh
he's like
yeah.
profitable.
Dude, even
Like whatever
channels.
website you go into, you
Yeah.
see him.
Oh yeah, even channels that talk shit about him. Like there's a channel on YouTube that talks shit about him all the time, but formerly did an interview with him before all this stuff came out. And that channel would
Mhm.
like keep posting clips from the interview just to get like views because it was like good for the
Clicks. Yeah,
algorithm. And like the channel,
exactly,
the guy who
exactly.
ran the channel literally said like, yeah, we just do that because he's good for the algorithm. Those videos do really well. Like, fuck,
But it's
man.
but it's fascinating though, because it's like even for us, right? Like we're a small channel. We have just like 150 plus folks. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, we're pushing because I think at some point once we reach 1,000 subscribers, like I think the channel can be a little bit more flexible and it can be recommended to more folks. And I believe that we can actually monetize the channel by that point also. So thank you for everybody for subscribing. You're really helping us out.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
guys. And a side note too, we're going to be on Apple Podcasts pretty soon, so I'm surprised we've made it this far on YouTube actually because, we don't even
yeah.
have like actual video. So the fact that we've made it this far on YouTube is like, you know, it's interesting. It's a rare case cuz usually podcasts without video do not do well at all on YouTube. But you
Yeah,
guys have really
but
helped us
YouTube's
out.
where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, but absolutely, absolutely, and but it's interesting because the point that I wanted to make is that even for us, like we have on the channel now, like a handful of videos that have been like very successful in terms of views, particularly the Cobra video, the Cobra. And that's a video that specifically mentions Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Like we talk about him, he's mentioned in the description, and I absolutely believe that that probably has something to do with why that video circulated so much. And
Yeah.
I think I think another video that we have, we might have also like talked about him because we talk about that guy maybe like every now and then, but not obviously not every podcast. Um, but I think another video that we made about him, or another video in which we've mentioned him, I think also has quite a handful of views. I think it might have even been like the Creed 3 video.
Yeah.
But I know it's one of those. It's one of those that has like in the upper thousands.
Yeah.
But I know that on the enemy video, that video is just living up on its own. There's no tape mentioned in that video. People are liking that video. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean the thing about the thing with Andrew Tate, right? Because I was like arguing with somebody online about Andrew Tate one time, and I'm like, why is it that I'm like, just think about it for a second. You really think like why would what I basically said to the guy like, why have multiple women accused this guy of grape? It's like, has anyone accused you of that? How many times have you been accused of that? I'm assuming none. I've never been accused of that. And he's like, oh, well, the
Mhm.
guy's like, he said, the guy goes, oh, well, because Andrew Tate is powerful and influential and famous and rich. And it's like, okay, and I responded to him and I said, I'd be curious to see your data on how rich and successful men are more likely to be accused of something like that. I would love to see the data on that. Like, is every, rich, successful, famous male been accused of grape? Of course not. Of course not. Think of
Mhm.
put up 10, 20 male celebrities. Just pick 20 random ones if we picked 20 random male celebrities with our eyes shut and just did a shuffle and put 20 up there, like maybe one of them, not even, you could have a lot of clusters of that without any of them having been accused of that. So it's like when you get to 4 women, different women in different scenarios in different countries accusing you.
Yeah.
Come on now. And I even asked the guy, I'm like, did you defend Cosby this hard? And like he stopped responding at that point. But I'm like, you don't defend Cosby this hard. And it's because, to just finish this point real quick, it's because of the fucking what's the term I'm looking for? Cognitive dissonance. It's because you look up to these guys. It's the same thing with Trump, right? It's like these guys are rich, successful men. You look up to them. There's qualities about them that you like, right? Like just with Andrew Tate, it's like, okay, this guy seems cool. He can box. He seems masculine. He's cool. He smokes cigars, right? He drives supercars. And then he says like a bunch of empowering common sense stuff like work hard, pursue your dreams, and go your own way, shit like that. It's like common sense shit. Who gives a fuck? Anybody can go on camera. That's what's so dumb about self-help. It's all just fucking tired, common sense garbage, man. Just peddled to like people who are just basement dwellers, man. It's like, fuck, this is so obvious to most of the population, like that you should get up before fucking 12 o'clock every day, right? And do some work and be a little productive and hit the gym. Like, fucking congratulations. Thank you for the empowering message. And then they do that, and then they backdoor in misogynistic, conspiratorial bullshit. Like that
comes hand in hand.
Exactly. And then they say, then when people come after them for shit they've done, Trump did the same thing. Fake news. It's all fake news. So when they come after him, he says, see, fake news, right? Same with Andrew Tate. It's the Matrix. It's the Matrix. They come after me. Anything they come at me with, it's the Matrix. Fucking ridiculous.
But it's interesting because I had been looking into that recently because this is going to switch gears a little bit, but it's Hannibal Buress is a comedian of mine that I really like. Hannibal Buress as a comedian, and he has two pretty great stand-up specials, and he's not put out stand-up special in a while because he kind of like got successful in other areas because he was in the Eric Andre show. He was in a bunch of movies, including the Spider-Man movies. He's been in every single one of the live-action Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
He's like their coach. He's like the gym teacher. But I feel like because of that, he's just kind of put stand-up on the back burner, although I think it's hilarious. Yeah. But he was the guy who exposed Bill Cosby. People forget about that. He exposed Bill Cosby. He was the downfall to Bill Cosby.
Really?
And apparently it was because Cosby, it was him. He was the downfall because people didn't know. Nobody knew, and he was the one who was doing like a stand-up bit. He just exposed him, and he was like, "Do you guys are aware that Cosby's done this and that thing?" And he's like, just like exposed him. And he told everybody in his audience, after you leave here tonight, Google Bill Cosby, this. Huh. And people did. And it became like a wild story. It was him, dude. It was Hannibal Buress.
Wow.
He took him down.
Shit, man. That's crazy. That's nuts, man. I
was looking into him. I was looking into him because of this. This is for all of the fans of this show that are listening to this. The Eric Andre show, the new season, is premiering Sunday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right, man.
So the new Eric Andre show is coming. And I'm aware of it because Adult Swim, their YouTube channel, they were doing a live stream of the show. So they were just like live streaming on YouTube the Eric Andre show, like episode after episode after episode.
Oh, shit.
And so I clicked into that, and I clicked into it and I saw Eric and I saw Hannibal and I was like, man, if there's a new season coming, Hannibal better be in the next season. Like he wasn't in the 5th season, he better be in the next one, And surprise, surprise, he's not in the new season.
Yeah. That's disappointing, man.
It bothers me. It bothers me. I've not actually been able to like. I've not gone out of my way to see even the last season that premiered like a year ago or whatever, just because he's not in it. And to me, it just feels like he was such a big part of it,
Yeah.
Because it was like Drake and Josh, but it's like, oh, but now Josh is not in it. It's just Drake, and it's like, I don't know how I feel about that.
It's like, I don't know about that, man. Just
Yeah.
just watching Drake run around looking for underage girls. I mean, oh, not the real Drake, the fictional Drake. Oh yeah,
The
Drake
fictional Drake.
walking around looking for girls his age. Yeah, God, my bad. Yeah,
Not Drake Bell, Drake Parker.
right. Yeah, Drake. It was Drake Parker and Josh Nichols, right?
Josh Nichols. Yeah.
Yeah, not Drake Bell and Josh Peck. And I've
Yeah.
never found that it's so simple. Find a way.
Find a way. Find a way.
It's gonna take some time to realize. It's too fun to do, man.
I know.
Well, Edward, did you have anything else that you wanted to go over before we get into the film section of the podcast?
No, man. It's been almost 50 minutes into this podcast. I say we go right ahead into the film section. I feel like those were the prevalent news. Anything else, we'll talk about it at a different time.
Yeah. Anything else is, is whatever.
But I have a film thing that I want to talk to you about. In
Yeah,
this
go
film
for it.
section. So, as you may or may not have been aware, Cannes Film Festival has been taking place.
Oh yeah.
And I'm aware, because I'm very much a big Cannes fan. So whatever is going on in Cannes, like whatever movies they say are like, oh, these are the best movies, I always kind of like lean towards that. I really don't care about the Oscars and whatever they say it's the best thing.
Yeah, okay.
But I really do, I really do like knowing like what won at Cannes and what won at like Berlin and what won at Venice,
Mm-hmm.
and what won in Toronto. Like I really care about those festivals. And those movies are usually the ones that I'm like, okay, I want to watch those. And those movies usually end up being the ones that are like kind of front runners for the Oscars anyway.
Sure.
But it's interesting because I feel like the Oscars and Cannes have like an interesting dichotomy where the Oscars are a place where if you win at the Oscars, it kind of signifies like you're profitable and you're it. It's like it signifies like success.
Yeah.
So to me, that's kind of like the difference because like to me, if you win at Cannes, it just means that you are like truly you've like ascended in the to the pantheon of like artistic filmmaking, and you made like a really artful film.
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and you're being celebrated as an artist. But if you win at the Oscars, it's like, oh, you're successful. Like not only are you like, not only are you critically acclaimed, but you're also a success.
Oh yeah.
And after you win here, you're gonna get all the money in the world, and everything that you want is gonna be made into projects. Anybody who wins at the Oscars, it's like Jordan Peele won, and then he got like a bunch of shows made. Every horror movie that was coming out was produced by him. Same thing with Del Toro. Same like any of these guys.
Yeah,
And
as a
Bong
horror
Joon-ho, when he
fan,
won for Yeah.
Jordan Peele is so good for the genre. Just as a side note, like, geez, amazing.
But like when Bong Joon-ho won, it was the same thing. It's like now they're making like a Snowpiercer TV show, and they're making like an English thing and this other thing, and this like everything just kind of just get all the opportunities. Everything just comes to you. So it's fascinating to me. But to get back to the point, Cannes happened, and a one Mr. Scorsese premiered his movie Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. Yeah.
Look at that! But he premiered the film, and he got a 9-minute standing ovation, which to me that's the funniest part about this whole thing.
Wow.
Like whenever you hear about movies at Cannes, part of it is always like, oh, then the standing ovation happened. And from what I understand, if the standing ovation is anywhere below 5 minutes, the movie was just okay, and it's like a nice city. Like we're just doing this to be nice. We're gonna clap for like 5 minutes. So if it's like anywhere above that, then the movie's like good. And if it's like anywhere, if you hear there was like an outlandish period of time that they clapped, then it was like a fantastic movie.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that. I've never heard that.
Oh, dude, that's the metric. So it's interesting because when that movie with Harry Styles and Lawrence Pugh, what was the name of that movie
Um. Oh
with
yeah.
Chris
What
Pine,
was it? Don't worry, darling.
Olivia Wilde, Worry Darling? When that movie came out, it premiered at Cannes, and but they only gave it a like 4 minute standing ovation. It was like 4 minutes
Ooh.
and like 15 seconds or something like that.
Ooh, it's a
So when
minute
they came out,
short.
like how long exactly, dude. So when it came out, like how long they clapped, everybody was like, "Oh, the movie probably sucks," you know. And then
Oh,
surprise, surprise, the movie sucked, which is pretty funny. Um,
that's so funny.
so I guess we I guess we can surmise that either Killers of the Blood Moon, Killers of the Flower Moon, we can either surmise that that movie is actually pretty good, or maybe they just clapped because it was Scorsese and they were like, "Oh, he's old, let's clap for him," you know. So it's still like a flip flop for that movie. But the funny thing for me is that if you watch like those like canned standing ovation like videos online, they are the most awkward thing that you can possibly see. Have you
Really?
seen those?
No, I haven't
Yeah.
seen those.
Dude, there is one specifically that is really awkward, and it is for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Once
because
upon a
Tarantino
time.
premiered it at Cannes. So he was there at Cannes, you know, because also Cannes is one of those things where I feel like even more so than the Oscars, the people have to be there, like the stars show up. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes like at the Oscars, like actors will just not show up. At Cannes, everybody shows up, everybody's there. So for the premiere of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you know, Brad Pitt was there, and DiCaprio, and Tarantino, and Margot Robbie. They were all there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they gave them like a 15-minute standing ovation, and it is insanely awkward
Here it
because
is.
not
What
only are they
one of the videos
clapping,
says
but
cringe begins at
they have
35 seconds.
cameras on them.
Oh
They
god,
have
yeah.
cameras on them.
I'm looking at it right now. Oh my god, yeah, and they just go oh jeez. And they're just like
It's
hovering
the
over them
most
the whole
awkward.
time. And they're just like giggling. Is that
Yeah,
Dakota Fanning? Was she in Once Upon a Time in
I
Hollywood?
think so.
I don't
She is.
remember.
She is in the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Who is she
She
one of the
is.
people
Yeah.
at the Manson camp? Who is she
Yes,
in
she
that movie?
is.
Okay. She's an underrated actress, dude.
She
I just
is. Yeah,
like
she's
her.
like the one that doesn't want him to go and see the old guy. She's the one that keeps kind of like resisting.
Interesting. I don't remember her in that movie. It's been like almost 4 years now since we first watched that together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at this. Oh my god. And then Brad Pitt. It goes to Brad Pitt. Oh my god, Brad Pitt looks like he's sucking on a lemon, like with the cameras in his face. Oh my god, this is rough.
I'm telling you, dude, it's insanely awkward. Insanely awkward.
Well, see, the problem with a tradition like this is once you start it, there's like no going back. Now it's like okay, we have to like keep clapping. We're like obligated to keep
Yeah.
clapping. Oh my god, now they're in Tarantino's face and he's just like looking at the camera and he's like,
Tarantino's the most awkward.
"Oh my god!" Now he's like nodding, and then he just did that like little Pulp Fiction dance
Yeah, he did
move
that thing.
with the peace signs by the
Yeah,
face, whatever that is.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
DiCaprio just saluted the camera.
yeah. So, dude,
Oh,
imagine
there's
that, man.
Tarantino's
Imagine how
wife.
awkward that is.
Oh my god, Tarantino's wife. That's like way out of his league. Good for that guy, man. Jesus, what a what a what a G. Oh my god. Wow. Dude, he just did it again. He just did the freaking. Or no, is that a loop? That's a repeat. Wow. Yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon, dude.
Imagine,
Yeah.
imagine how awkward that is.
Oh my god, man! All the cameras in your face. Goodness. Killers of the Flower Moon looks good. I watched the. Did you see the trailer? Probably not, right?
I have none. No.
Yeah, as you don't.
You know
I-
me. You know me.
Yeah, I respect that. I mean, look, if you don't want to watch trailers, hey, fuck. I mean, I can get that to a certain point. There's like certain movies I won't watch the trailer for it. Like, I can't remember the last movie I consciously didn't watch the trailer for, but um, it is a good idea with
Looks
certain
great.
movies. Yeah, it does look great. I mean,
Okay.
the trailer creeped me out, dude. Especially like the end of the trailer. Like the end of the trailer, it's just like this
Oh,
wide
don't tell me
shot.
about it.
Oh fuck! You don't want me to say
Yeah.
anything?
Don't, Don't tell me, man.
I'm not gonna say it's not even anything really like noteworthy. Anyway, um, moving
Okay.
on then. So this is not only Scorsese's next film, but this is also the next film, Edward, in the Renaissance.
Yes, I
Just
noticed that. I know that he's there, and the actor better known as Meth Damon is also in that movie.
yeah, Jesse Plemons, known as Meth Damon, because of his
Yeah.
role in Breaking Bad, and he looks like Matt Damon. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I've actually been rewatching a little bit of Breaking Bad recently. That's like a show
Really? As you do.
yeah, I try not to rewatch it too much because I have like a horrific idea that I'd wear it out, which
Mm.
I don't think I ever would, but I would never want that to happen. But um,
Mm.
I don't know, man. That like people, it's so funny with a show like Breaking Bad, where it's like it's such a legendary show that when people talk about it and make the hundreds upon hundreds of video essays about it, as you and I touched on last week, they
Yeah.
tend to only talk about like sort of the big moments, like the big episodes. They'll talk about the Fly episode, and they'll talk about the finale, and they'll talk about the pilot. They'll talk about Face Off. They'll just talk about like the big episodes. But dude, I'm telling you, man, you just pick like a random episode from that show, just like mid season 4. I mean, it's just so good, man. Just the drama, just like the quiet drama and suspense of that show. It's nice, man.
Hmm.
Just doesn't. It's like the most loved show that's still underrated and will never get the praise it deserves because it's just that good. Honestly,
Hmm.
I mean, it gets the praise it deserves, but
It gets the praise it deserves.
it does. It absolutely does. But all I'm saying is like it
Like it's like
almost.
rated as like the best show on the planet.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't praise it enough. I think is
I see.
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, and go back to Killers of the Flower Moon. This is another Edward 3.5 hour movie from Scorsese.
Yes. It is another 3.5 hour movie.
That seems to be his thing.
Something
now.
that I wanted to build on this point, and then I'll pass it on to you. But something that I wanted to build on, I wanted to ask you this question: Do you believe, truly, do you believe that Martin Scorsese is a director that has range?
Yeah. No, I think so. He definitely does. I mean, well, it's a good question. It's kind of a loaded question.
Because
he does, dude.
it is.
Because he absolutely does. But go ahead. Keep expanding.
Well, because that's what I was gonna say. Because it's like it's fascinating, because we're talking about somebody who is known for, Mean Streets and After Hours and Goodfellas and Casino, The Departed, The Irishman, and all of those movies are more or less the same movie, in the sense that they deal with the exact same kind of topics, characters, mafia, Irishness, Italians, So it's like, I know that despite that, I know that he did make Cape Fear, and I know that he made Hugo, and I know that he made Silence, which I haven't seen, it's like been on my watch list forever,
Yep.
I know
After
that he made those
Hours,
movies.
King of Comedy. It's that
Yeah,
Last
but the thing is,
Temptation
like,
of Christ.
I was gonna mention the Last Temptation of Christ, but the thing is that I don't really like. To me, After Hours and The King of Comedy are kind of in the same vein as like Goodfellas. They're just kind of in the same vein to me of just kind of being like these like character like movies, but not necessarily like moving away from like a section or like a New Yorkness or like a what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they just kind of deal with the same things to me.
I don't know. You've seen After Hours?
I'm
Or
not saying
are you
After
just
Hours, but
talking
I
about
know
the
what the movie's
subject
about.
matter? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about the subject matter.
I got you. I just wanted to make sure I knew what we were
Because
where you were at on that.
True Departure. I feel like True Departures for him really from kind of like his ballpark really are just like, The Last Temptation and Shutter Island and Hugo and Silence, I guess. But there's another one. There's like a movie that he made called like The King or like The Last King or something.
I'm not sure. I'm looking at all his stuff. The Aviator. I mean, that's a biopic type thing, but it is different. I mean, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I would say I get like King of Comedy takes place in New York, right?
Yeah.
I guess he does stick. Okay, so setting wise, he does like to stick around those big cities, New York, Boston, with The Departed, right? Goodfellas
Mhm.
was what? What was Goodfellas? New Jersey? Fuck, where did Goodfellas take place?
Jay-Z.
I don't.
I think it might have been in Jersey.
I think it was. Yeah. I don't know. I would say I get with maybe the setting, but I would say it's kind of a stretch to say like that After Hours is beyond the setting is like in any way similar to if we're talking about him having range, like I don't even know if a certain setting like really even does that even contribute to range? Like is that
I think it.
even
I think it would, cause like I think like the detriment with him, like when you get caught up in like film nerd conversations, right?
Mhm.
And the usual Scorsese versus Spielberg comes up. The biggest thing that people always point out to me in favor of Spielberg is Spielberg has range.
Mhm.
You know, in the sense that he made the shark movies and the Jurassic Park movies and the Indiana Jones and the ETs.
Well,
And
now wait a
truly,
second though.
truthfully,
Can you really say that that's range? Those four that you mentioned, those are all in the same kind of vein. I mean, those are all adventure films, three of which include creatures in
yeah.
them. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah, but
don't.
then you have to remember that he also made, Saving Private Ryan, and he also made the Holocaust film. What's the name of that movie?
Um, fuck. Schindler's List.
Schindler's List, and he made Lincoln. Like I think truthfully, you have to give it to that guy. Like the guy does have range in the sense that he has made seemingly every type of movie that you could make. He really has like war movies and historical epics and biographical films and horror movies or thrillers or spectacle films, action films, like Indiana Jones would be. You know, he made what is it, Contact with the Fourth Kind or whatever the heck that movie's name is. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think with him it's like clear. I think it is clear with that guy. Like he really has. He even made a musical when he made that, like, what's the name of that movie? He made a
Oh
movie a couple
yeah.
years ago.
I watched it. What was it? West Side
It's like West
Story.
Side Story. Is that what it is?
Yeah, West
Yeah.
Side Story.
I feel like you really have to give it to that guy. Like you kind of really have to give it to him. In the sense that he really has like flexed his like dominance of the medium to such an extent where he's kind of made a movie in all these genres. He made an animated film because he made Tintin. Um, but I think you really can't say the same about Scorsese.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's a. Why I make that sound? Uh, fuck. Let's reset from there, Jake. Let's try that again. I don't know, but then you got to ask yourself, like, how important is range? Because I don't know, like for me, that might be a good question because for me, like when I look at a director, I'm kind of like, oh, well, this director's coming out with a new film. Why am I excited to see this new film? Because this new director made it, right? And it's because
Yeah,
I know what to expect to an extent with this director, right? So maybe range isn't even always a good thing, right? Because like
yeah,
with Tarantino,
yeah,
Tarantino has on one hand, he has a range in terms of setting, but on another
hmm
hand, his films are very stylistically similar, right?
yes,
Inglorious
yeah,
Bastards and Django are like stylistically very similar. They have very similar scenes. They have
yeah,
very similar
yeah.
shootouts and
Even though one is like a war movie and one's a western.
exactly. Similar witty dialogue, similar themes of like, hey, we're gonna retroactively kill Hitler or we're going to retroactively kill slavers. You know what I mean? But it's still a Tarantino movie. It has his stamp on it. You know what I mean? It has his witty dialogue, his over the top violence, his, you know, somewhat comedic, like his black comedy, right? His shooting style, his style of suspense, right? It has all of that stuff. And so, say, like when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, you and I were all over it because it was like, oh shit, we like Tarantino. This is a Tarantino film. To an extent, we know what we're getting with. And I guess that's maybe sort of my beef with like someone like Spielberg is like, if I hear that Spielberg's coming out with a new movie, I'm like, okay, well, what's it about? You know, I need more information. You know what I mean? Whereas like when you tell me, oh, Scorsese's coming out with a new movie, I'm like, great. Fincher's coming out with a new movie, awesome. Tarantino, etc.
So
etc.
That being said, I'm gonna bring up like a very controversial topic. Okay.
Okay.
Because also Spielberg made a movie that you love. Because he made what's the name of that movie? The one with Tom Cruise. The sci-fi film.
Oh, Minority Report.
He also made that movie. But something that I want to bring up to you, and this is a very controversial topic. You know, I know that people who are listening to this, as long as they're film nerds or as long as they study film, they know about this. This is a very controversial topic, but auteurs, right? The whole idea of like an auteur filmmaker. In that sense, would you say that Scorsese is more of an auteur filmmaker than Spielberg is?
Yeah, so your audio cut out a little bit, but I know what you said. So just to repeat it for the audience, you asked, is
so
Scorsese more... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for the sake of the audience, what I'm asking Jake is, and I'm kind of putting Jake in an awkward position because I know that this is like a controversial kind of thing to talk about because people always fucking argue the merits of this. But what I asked Jake is Scorsese more of an auteur than Spielberg is? And auteur is just a fancy word for author. Basically indicating that a filmmaker has an authorship or like an authorial intent over a work, so much so that even if they don't write it, they have such a stylistic presence in the work that the work cannot help but be of that filmmakers. So Tarantino, you know, so Wes Anderson, so much so that then things become Andersonian, you know, and people coin those phrases, you know, Coen brothers, you know, like Hitchcockian, exactly. So then you come up with those things, and then all of this just devolves into film study and the idea of stylistics. But the question here again is Scorsese more of an author of film than Spielberg is?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's why. It's real easy. Like I'm not taking any merit away from your question. It's a great question, but for me it's an easy yes, because how much harder would it be for me to pull up a random film, right? And be like, and ask you, hey, Edward, you need to tell me yes or no, is this a Spielberg film based on the way it's filmed, the style, the subject matter, etc., right? Like just the style of it, the tone, the use of the camera work, all of that stuff, right? You would have a much harder time at that than if I gave you a random Spielberg or a random Scorsese film that maybe you hadn't seen, and I had to say, hey, is this a Scorsese film or not, right? Or better yet, whose film is this, right? Maybe that's an even better question. Like, whose film is this, right? And let's just say for argument, your memory was wiped, so you couldn't remember seeing the films, but you somehow still had a sense of Scorsese's style and Spielberg's style, respectively. I would argue it'd be way easier. Your score would be much higher on the Scorsese side of things than the Spielberg side of things. Like, Spielberg is he is the most, and this is like maybe perhaps a compliment to him as far as his range goes, which, again, I think you're absolutely right as far as his range. Like, he is a chameleon of a filmmaker. I mean,
Mhm.
the dude did Poltergeist. Excuse me, I made the mic go too
Mhm.
loud there. He did Poltergeist. Or no, he didn't direct
Toby Hooper did
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist.
Yeah, but his fingerprints are all over Poltergeist. And some say
One of
he
those
did.
things where it's
Some
like
say he shadow directed it, basically.
yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Like people just the big claim, and this is like such a claim that at this point has become almost like fact, is
Yeah,
that he actually was the person who directed that film.
yeah. Hence why I just basically just threw it out there like it was common knowledge before realizing it. I feel like if Toby Hooper was
But it's interesting.
just to add a side note to that, I feel like if Toby Hooper was fully in charge of Poltergeist, it would have been a lot more gruesome than it turned out.
Yes, but it's interesting to me because as acknowledging or it being such a wildly like accepted thing that Spielberg actually was who directed Poltergeist is interesting because the reason why the why for that is because stylistically it's a Spielberg film. You know, like in that same vein of the whole auteur, auteur, in the same vein of this conversation. That's why it's like such a Scorsese film because it's filmed like not a Scorsese, a Spielberg film because it's filmed like a Spielberg film, and it's the music's a Spielberg film, and the direction and the camera movement, everything's Spielberg. So that's a movie that revealed itself in the presentation where it really has this like big fingerprint of Spielberg did this movie. But that being said, I agree with you 100% that if you show me like a single minute of a film and you go like, who directed this movie? It is much easier to pin down Scorsese's style than Spielberg. Although a Spielberg film to me is quite recognizable just because of how he like moves the camera and the sequences, but Scorsese has a much more distinctive style
Yeah,
than he does. So I feel like in that auteur conversation, Scorsese actually I think does outclass him.
yeah. Well, and the thing is too, like with Spielberg, the fact that Poltergeist is a Spielberg film, I almost want to say that it's more so that you can tell it's an 80s Spielberg film, right? Because after that, he kind of
Mhm.
departed from that style
Yeah,
a little bit. His films in the
yeah,
90s were different. His films in the early 2000s were different. And then he just started doing random ass shit in the second half of the
in
of
the
the
2010s.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, in the 2010s and the late 2000s. I mean, so
uh,
it's so much of a mixed bag for Spielberg. So you are right. You're 100% correct with the whole range thing. But the thing with
yeah,
auteurs for me, it's like I don't know. I don't have a hard stance either way. It's like it's like shit. Whatever films are brought to life by a team, right? And just personally, from my perspective, like currently, this, and some people listening may know. Like I'm currently, we actually just wrapped up animation on a season of animated television, written by myself. And I will say that once all the writing portion of it was done and my input on a lot of the character designs and stuff were done, I took a big step back and let those folks kind of handle the animation and everything. And it's just like, am I the author? Well, I'm the author of the story, and I told them how certain characters should look and sound. And I give them tidbits here and there, but when you know every week when we're in meetings and I see clips from the animators, what I will say is that I'm continuously pleasantly surprised by the creative spins, not spins, but just the bits of creativity the things that come from the animator. Like say an animator does a specific shot, I'm continuously pleasantly surprised by the things that are uh, uniquely them about that shot, right? I'll give an example quick. There's a sequence in one of the episodes where the main character, it's sort of like a you know Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, Ratchet and Clank, along those lines kind of thing. for those listening. So it's, another big influence was like Ben 10. It's very much like in that vein, right? And there's a sequence in one of the episodes where main character, he's underwater, he's got this like underwater kind of jetpack kind of thing, and there's this big like sort of chase cat and mouse slash fight underwater sequence. And there's this big kind of sea monster, or this school of sea monsters rather. And when I wrote it, I was, picturing one thing, right? And then when the animator presented like, here's the, animation, I'm watching it, and the sea monster looks the way I generally described it, but also it's moving like a whale, right? Where I pictured it moving like a fish. But I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. That kind of makes it unique, right? Because like, only whales move like that with their flippers moving up and down, right? All this is to say that you might think you're the author of something, but when you have a team of people working and they're very talented people, they're going to pleasantly surprise you with their creativity and their ideas, and they're going to make your product even better than you could have made it on your own. So
it's funny because like that's been like, and that's why the whole idea of like auteur theory is like such a controversial thing, because obviously filmmaking is a group thing. It's not like Scorsese is like doing everything, and at the end of the movie he just says Scorsese for everything.
Absolutely.
So there's that element of it. Although the thing that makes this such a recurrent topic is that regardless of those things, the things that remain true about all of these filmmakers' films is that those filmmakers are present in those films. Those films have those recurring thematic elements and, stylistic elements, right? Because it's like the DP made shift, but the thing still looks the same. So that's like still kind of like the thing that remains, right? That it's like, okay, this person's kind of the core element. And I'm not going to argue with you about that stuff, because I agree with what you're saying, but I also agree with what people say about that whole idea of the auteur theory. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that theory because it makes filmmaking more personal in that sense. Where it's like when I watch like a Marvel movie, I seldomly have like a personal experience with the film because I feel like the film is not really engaging with me personally. Whereas like the films that I have like a really personal connection to are most often than not made by filmmakers that had like a very singular idea. And more often than not are movies that were made, directed, and written by the filmmaker who made the movie.
Yeah.
Those are usually the movies that I really like engage with because I appreciate that. I appreciate relating to a person. And it's hard to do that with filmmaking because a shit ton of people work in them. But there's something funny that I wanted to mention is that I saw this today, is that apparently Arnold, when filming the Terminator, he said to James Cameron, do you know where I'm going with this?
Bro, I think I do.
He said to James Cameron, he said like, James, like I feel like the character should say, I will be back.
Because it's more like a robot.
I'll be back.
Yeah, I remember
this. It's more robotic. Yeah. And apparently the answer that James Cameron had to him was, Arnold, shut the fuck up. He said, are you the writer of the movie? No, I wrote the movie. Just say what I wrote.
Yeah, that's fucked up. James Cameron, dude, he was a dick back in the 80s. Like I've heard that story. I've seen behind the scenes footage from Aliens and The Abyss. Dude, he's a dick to his crew. Like there's a video of him behind the scenes in Aliens. He's being a dick to some people about the face hugger scene. And then in The Abyss, there's like a whole compilation of him telling people to shut up like on set. Like he really had to calm down. And I think even Kate Winslet said she would never work with him again, but lo and behold, she was in Avatar 2, which I still haven't seen, but it's now
they always say that
front and center on it's not HBO Max now, it's just Max now, which is so freaking weird.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's just Max. It's strange.
Yeah, it's odd. Anyway. Yeah, no,
but
and the whole auteur thing, like, it's absolutely just us even talking about what makes a Scorsese film, what makes a Tarantino film, right? Like, there's obviously credence to it. Same
Mhm.
here. Like all my favorite films, all the films on my front page of Letterboxd, like all 4 of them have clear like visions where it's like you can tell when it's a Kevin Smith movie or a Neil Blomkamp movie or a Safdie brothers movie, right? So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
absolutely agree with that. I would just argue against, and I don't know how big, what the percentages of film buffs who might think this, but I would argue against any idea that that the auteurship leans anywhere near the 100% mark, right? Like
Yeah.
they probably
Yeah.
hover near like
100%.
an 80% sort of mark, but you're always getting ideas. If you have a really talented team and a great team, that's what I was trying to say with like my whole analogy with my not alibi anecdote, excuse me, about working on this animated series that we've been working on, like just working with a team and having them come in with interesting ideas that you never thought of. It's like so fucking satisfying. And here's the thing,
Yeah.
I'm an author first and
Unless you're James Cameron.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Then you tell them to shut the fuck up. No, I've never told anyone on my team that and never will. um but yeah, like, and here's the thing, like I'm an author. I'm a literal author. I like writing books, and with that stuff, I like having total control. But here's the thing, like anything that I write, I have what's called beta readers who I have paid beta readers who read my stuff and give me feedback on it. I actually spend money on that because it's important to me. You want other sets of eyes looking at your work and giving you new ideas, and maybe at that point you feel like it's not your baby anymore, and I would caution against
Mhm.
that mindset because every artist has probably been of that mindset at some point, but I would caution
Mhm.
against that. You always want to take ideas, criticisms, advice at least seriously, look at them analytically, and you know take what works, right? Like if enough people are telling you that this scene doesn't work, like hey, rework it, right? um so yeah, that's but yeah, great topic, man. I mean, really interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. But all of that being said, I want to pass it on to you after talking about this Scorsese can Spielberg topic for the past 35 minutes.
Yeah.
I will pass the baton on to you, sir. What do you have
Yeah, man.
that you want to talk about?
Well, I saw some funny shit on moving on to a little more lighthearted, less serious. We're not talking about auteurs and stuff, but still film related. I saw some good stuff on on Reddit recently, in the past
Mm,
few days that I thought was funny. So there's a lot of good, subreddits for movie lovers, you know. And one of these subreddits that gives me a good laugh here and there is r/FanTheories. And
mhm,
r/FanTheories has some just some great fan theories. Just some great stuff. Some of it's really funny, and some of it's actually actually interesting. So I had a couple that I thought were funny, and one that I thought was like really interesting. So we'll do the funny ones first.
mhm,
Um, so one someone put someone wrote this is from u/Dilden22, and he or she writes Spider-Man 3, not my theory. I think it's from the Weekly Planet podcast. And they go, in Spider-Man 3, there's a moment where Peter watches through a window as Harry Osborn sits in a cafe. Then a lorry drives in front of his view, and
mm.
when the lorry has passed, Harry is suddenly gone.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they say the theory is that he is hiding under the table. So stupid.
you know, but
And so
you know what the
the
funny thing
first
is that
the first comment on
I
that says incredible.
but that's the thing that everybody thought, like when you were a kid, you were just like, oh man, he's gone. But anybody who rewatched that movie once they got a little bit older, they were like, how? And
Oh
in my
yeah,
head, I remember watching that scene. Like I think because you and I watched that movie like our fourth year or something. And I
yeah.
remember rewatching that movie and just kind of thinking to myself, like, it's like, what is he hiding under the table? What is going on here?
Oh man. Yeah.
That's a funny one.
Yeah, I dude, I'll never forget. I can still see that little wink that he does. Like he leans back and he just
Yeah,
gives
and
that
then
little
Peter
wink.
goes like this, like he's like he puffs like he's coming. I'm coming for you. It's like, oh, he's calling.
Yeah. Oh man, Spider-Man 3 had so much potential, man. That movie could be
Yeah,
so much more than it is. I'm not a hater.
yeah,
I like Spider-Man 3. I've always liked it. But
yeah,
it has much more potential. It has the potential to be more than it is. And
yes.
before, right before that, there's that part where the waitress comes by and she's like, "How's the pie?" And he's just like, "So good." And you're just
Yeah.
like, "Oh god, this guy." Just becomes like
Yeah,
the world's biggest douche.
it does. Yeah.
Little
It's
Goblin
about Peter.
Junior.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They both become the biggest douche in the world. They're competing on who is the worst.
yeah, they really do become just douche nozzles in that movie. Holy shit!
They do.
Look at little Goblin Junior. Gonna cry? Another one, so there's actually a few funny ones. Another funny one that I saw is is in fan theories u slash pim Pimpachu 3, which is a hilarious username. And it goes, Alvin and the Chipmunks were created by the High Evolutionary. And then it goes, "Hi guys. So I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy and the talking animals got me to thinking. Notice in every incarnation of the Chipmunks, there are only 6 known chipmunks with the ability to speak and sing English.
Correct.
There is never
Correct.
any mention of parents, cousins, etc. Rocket Raccoon has been shown to like music. He is always borrowing Peter's Zune, although we never heard him sing. Here are my theories / observations. Breeding. Three of each sex. Three of each sex provides the bare minimum breeding population for singing chipmunks. Alvin is also very, very honey and possibly has the. Oh, you mean horny? And possibly has the ability to
Yeah, I think so.
impregnate human females. What the fuck? And then,
What the heck?
and then it says Dave. Dave is either an employee of the High Evolutionary or a pervert who rescued the chipmunks only to sexually abuse them. Jesus Christ. My God.
Jeez.
And someone commented, "Okay, this makes sense at first, but you lost me at the weird sex stuff." I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. For a second there, I was like, oh, that looks like a fun connection that they're making. And then it just derailed. Then it just became one of those like weird, like 404, page not found, like something's going on here.
Yeah, becomes the spinning beach ball on the laptop.
Yeah, I feel like when people descend down that rabbit hole sometimes, it's like it's like it's like Furry City down there. When you start to see these like little animated characters as like anything other than just being like little animal animated characters, and you
Yeah.
start doing these things, like okay, it looks like you're going somewhere here. No, not all of us are gonna be able to follow you down that road.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
good for you, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, you'll like this one, Edward. This is by u / Judd Nelson Bow. And it's Pretty Woman takes place within the Shrek universe. And more theories about the
Mhm.
Shrek timeline. And this is what it says. I'm sure something like this has been posted already, but figured I'd post this anyway. In Shrek 2, the fairy godmother mentions Pretty Woman not having an ogre. This means Pretty Woman is just a story, but could it be more? The world of Shrek connects throughout all of the different fairy tales and fables throughout the world. If the other fairy tale creatures are real, then what's to say that Pretty Woman isn't? Now, that might mean that Pretty Woman, the movie, isn't the exact story, as we see there are several differences between the stories and the real world of Shrek. So this is why the movie takes place in the modern world, while Shrek seemingly takes place in the past, unless you believe the theory that the movie takes place in the future, which completely ignores the third movie with King Arthur's backstory. So what's that, like the fairy godmother granted Julia Roberts' character a fairy tale or whatever, her wish to marry George Clooney,
Oh,
I
I've never
guess.
seen. I've never seen Pretty Woman.
Oh no, it's not even George Clooney. I'm thinking of Ocean's 11. It's who's the guy in Pretty Woman?
It's that other guy.
Is it
It's
Michael
it's that other guy in
Douglas?
Pretty Woman.
It's
It's
Wait,
not
no,
Michael
Richard
Douglas.
Gere. My bad, I got it wrong
Yeah.
twice. Goodness.
George Clooney and Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas would have been too old to be in that role, man. Not that they care, because they don't really care when they make this like movies with these old dudes and this like 20-year-old women. But he would have been way too old.
In 1990, he wouldn't have been too old
Is
in
that when the movie came out?
1990. Yeah, he would have been.
When did that
Well,
movie come out?
oh, he still would have been 46. But I mean, I think Richard Gere's around the
Yeah.
same age, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Richard
probably.
Gere's like,
They don't give it.
yeah, Richard Gere's only a few years apart
They
from him.
didn't care.
Yeah,
Yeah, they didn't care at that point. I thought Pretty Woman came out like in '99 or something.
I did too, but it was 1990. It seems longer ago than I thought.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh. That's a long time ago.
yeah. But here's the one that I actually found legitimately interesting. 1 second, I might have to pull it up. Hang on. r/FanTheories Fight Club. This is Fight Club's fan theory.
It's a Fight Club time thing.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of interesting. So I haven't. I only. I'll be honest. What I found interesting was the headline. I didn't actually read it yet, so this will be my first time reading it too. So here we go. This one's like slightly longer. I mean, it's not huge, but it's a little longer. Fight Club is a metaphor for Xanax abuse. This is posted by
Okay.
u/Herb Dontana. Herb Dontana. Okay, and it goes. Marla's suicide attempt reminded me of mine. It's okay. It was a decade ago, and I'm in a much better place now. Well, good. Good to hear, man or woman. Point is, it got me thinking about Xanax and Fight Club. The narrator is prescribed a very similar drug early on in the movie, and Marla attempted to use it to kill herself. First, Xanax won't kill you. When I woke in the psych ward after my attempt, they estimated that I had taken between 70 and 100 milligrams. I blacked out for 5 whole days. Jesus. During these days, the nurse... Wow, this is getting crazy. During these days, the nurses and family who visited described me as a totally different person. I'm normally shy, quiet, easygoing, friendly, polite person. They said I was violent, angry, mean, nasty, etc. I was out for 5 days, of which I don't remember anything at all. No bits or pieces of memories that have ever come back to me of those first 5 days. Excuse me. I woke up in the psych ward thinking it was the day after I took all those pills. The first part is that I wouldn't have taken all the pills if I had already been messed up on Xanax. It lowers inhibitions to a point that you don't care about consequences or risks. This is something that a person with panic attacks and extreme anxiety, as well as the narrator and friend club, you mean Fight Club, would find helpful. As someone with anxiety, it's refreshing to not worry about every little thing or anything at all. The main thing is that someone else was in the driver's seat while I wasn't even around or aware. A separate version of myself took over. I strongly dislike that version of myself, but I can understand someone wanting to be more like that. To be more assertive, to not give a fuck, to casually commit crimes without fear of consequences, to be Marla Singer. In the movie, the narrator saves Marla when she attempts suicide. She took Xanax, which wouldn't have killed her. It might mess with your head to an extreme extent, but it's not going to kill you. I believe that saving Marla referenced the narrator taking all the Xanax to save the blackout version of himself. The assertive, badass, take no prisoners person he wishes he could be. The one who starred in Fight Club. In the movie, they discuss society and everything wrong with it. They clearly have a distaste for society in general. This means living in Aerators has a distaste for society. I don't get what they're trying to say there. I believe this is because he sees himself as Marla deep down. The reason she shoots Tyler and holds hands with Marla at the end is that Tyler is who society wants him to be. Marla is who he actually wants to be. She represents the blacked out version of himself, but also his desire to be a woman. Okay, that's weird. In his normal state, he is too
Okay.
yeah, in his normal state, he is too nervous to actually be Marla. It's easier when he's on Xanax. It gives him that I don't give a fuck attitude that she possesses throughout the movie. This is in no way comparing mental health issues to being trans. It's about the effect that being ostracized can have on a person who simply wants to be themselves and be comfortable. Xanax or whatever benzodiazepine type medication he is taking causes him to black out, which is why he seemingly wakes up to discover Project Mayhem. The blackout version of himself started it as his body was on autopilot. As everything crumbles at the end, might be falling apart, he doesn't mind now because he's finally comfortable in his own skin. He's content because he's Marla, confident, assertive female. This is a very shortened version of my theory that got deleted. It piggybacks off other theories, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. Anything else? I think that's why it's the drug Marla tries to OD on. She wouldn't die from it no matter how much she takes, but if she's the blackout version of the narrator, him not taking it might mean she goes away. He saves her by taking an excessive amount of Xanax. And that's the end of the post. Interesting.
I got confused in there somewhere because I was like, I thought that he was saying that the blackout version of him was Tyler Durden.
Yeah, that I could see because that's like I think that is easier to buy. That's where I thought it would have gone because Tyler is carefree, worried. I think I don't know why would society want him to be Tyler? That's the part that bumped for me. He's like Tyler. Yeah, he says holds hands with Marla at the end is because Tyler is who society wants him to be. Marla is who he actually wants to be. Tyler's not who society wants him to be. The narrator is who society wants him to be. I feel like that's the point of the movie. But I could buy the Xanax parallel if you want to see it as a metaphor for Xanax addiction. I could definitely see that.
Because absolutely, like that's something that I can actually see maybe being in the text of the film, of it being kind of like this was happening to him because he was like addicted to these things, and this was like the consequence of that. But I don't, more power through them. And if it's there, it's there,
Yeah.
And if it's there, then it's cool. That's great. Sounds like a great theory if it's actually like in the text. But I don't think it is, or at least like the way that they were wording it, it didn't. I felt like it would have made more sense the other way around. Maybe they could have worded it differently, but it is a great theory, Great stuff. I never heard that before.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
Definitely, definitely very thought provoking. So again, like more power to them. I hope the movie actually like justifies that theory. It would be pretty cool. But at least the way that they worded it, it kind of got lost in translation a little bit.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think it seemed like a big leap, the whole like trans thing. I don't see that in the film. I mean, like I get that, the Marla character isn't like your average. She's like not your average love interest character, right? She's a lot edgier. And it's been a while since I've seen Fight Club.
It's been a while since I saw that movie.
Yeah, it's been like good. I think like a little over 3 years. I remember I was like inspired to watch it when the whole pandemic started. So I was like, anarchy. I'll watch Fight Club.
Yeah.
But anyway. But yeah, I definitely I could see it, in regards to again the Tyler character. That the Tyler Durden is him Xanaxed out, so to speak. That I could see, that I could buy.
Yeah, no, that I can buy, absolutely. That makes like I can picture that and it makes clear sense. But I would have to rewatch the movie in order to see if the other element of that theory is there,
Yeah.
Because I can't remember that movie very well.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, Edward, since that was kind of quick, I was going to do a couple of fictional character face-offs. Had a couple of those for you.
Yeah, let's do it, dude. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do it.
So this is
I want to hear these face-offs.
Yeah, right. I can't. I tried to put some thought into it. I tried not to like do the one like everybody always says like, oh, Batman versus Wolverine or Batman versus Predator. For some reason, those are like really popular. Like I don't know. I feel like Wolverine and Predator win both of those. But anyway, um,
Yeah, I agree.
but I tried to make them like unique.
Hmm.
And maybe like, oh shit, I never thought of that one before. I'm sure someone's thought of like maybe one or two of these, um,
Hmm.
but yeah, this is a segment that Edward and I haven't done in a long ass time. The last time we were doing this, we didn't even
Yes.
have like a proper mic setup or anything. Um, so we'll get into this is the fictional character face off, or shortened version, fictional face off segment of the podcast.
Fictional face.
The reoccurring segment where we take fictional characters, we put them against each other, we talk about who we think would win, whether it depends on the context of the story that they are in. So whether it's a physical fight, a battle of wits, etc. First one I got here, Edward, is Walter White versus Lalo
Mm-hmm.
Salamanca.
Okay.
Now here's the thing, yeah, because like just to unpack it real quick, like, you know, Walter White, the protagonist of Breaking Bad, Lalo Salamanca, one of the chief antagonists of Better Call Saul. The two never cross paths, right? By the time the Breaking Bad timeline happens, Lalo is, for whatever reason, we won't talk about it, but he's not in the picture physically anymore. But what you got on that, Edward?
Well, this is going to be a pretty straightforward answer for me. Because Walter White is ultimately a character that in his narrative in the Breaking Bad universe is undefeated.
Yeah.
Like the only downfall of that character was himself.
Yeah.
And he really went out like by his own terms. And he defeated the character that defeated Lalo. So Lalo was outsmarted and defeated by Gus. And ultimately, Walter outsmarted and defeated Gus. So I think through the whole logic of this process, I'm gonna go with Walter because
Yeah.
Walter ascended to insane levels. I mean, he like orchestrated like a jail like mass murder that happened like between like 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah. It was like
So
2 minutes or something like that. Yeah, it was like crazy.
yeah. So like I mean the things that character ended up achieving and doing in that series are insane.
Yeah.
So 100%, I give it to Walter. Walter. I think Walter would succeed.
I agree because here's the thing. For a little, when I thought about it at first, I was like, okay, so for a minute, I was like, I think because Lalo is a lot more impulsive than Gus, right? He's a way more impulsive character. Like Lalo's a fucking, sociopath, where Gus is just a bad dude. Like I don't think Gus is a sociopath or a psychopath at all. I think Gus is just a bad guy. That's my armchair psychologist assessment of him, right? Lalo's a freaking sociopath, like, freaking
bad guy.
Yeah, he's, narcissistic, psychopathic, sadist, and he has that psychopathic, he in a lot of ways, right? Like people like to think that, oh, Lalo is, Tuco's superior. He is, absolutely. He's more, he is way more intelligent than Tuco, and he can charm people. Tuco could never have done the whole like Germany thing where he goes and like woos Mrs. Ziegler. Like no way, the Tuco never could have done that. He just would have walked in and be like, Mrs. Ziegler, like, tell me what the fuck Werner was building, like that would have been Tuco's version of that. But Lalo is very similar to Tuco in the sense that he is impulsive, whether he would admit it or not. The character is impulsive, We see it in that show. He fucking kills people on a dime. Like, if he's like, okay, you know what? I need this person dead now for whatever reason. Bam. And then it we see for when Saul becomes his lawyer, it catches up with him, right? So for that reason, I was like, that could actually be a strength because Walt's just this fucker that's like, he's just a guy that like lives at home. So like if Lalo had it out for him, it'd be just like, oh, it's over. But then I thought about, well, think about not only did he defeat Gus, right? And I'm gonna definitely put a spoiler tag in the chapters here, in the video. But he
Yes,
also
I'm keeping
defeated.
track of the times. You'll know when this comes up.
Yeah, I jotted it down too. But thank you. He not only defeated Gus, but he also defeated Tuco, who's really fucking impulsive. Why did he defeat both of them? Why did Walter White go undefeated? Well, it's because of how valuable he is. It's because of his skill set, right? Like, and Tuco didn't kill him. Why? He's so valuable. He's not gonna give that up, right? Gus, it took forever for Gus. Gus had to wait to be able to finally be like, okay, now I could kill Walter, right? Because he had to wait. He's like, I don't have a fucking cook. Like, he's like, I don't have a fucking guy to run my lab. Like this, I'll lose so much money, right? So you have to assume Lalo, being as intelligent as he is and money hungry as he is, he would be like, I'm not gonna, just impulsively kill Walter, right? And for that reason, again, you give Walter any inch, any amount of breathing room, he's gonna fucking outsmart you. So I agree.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that was a very well worded way of saying why he would have actually been the guy to succeed in that scenario.
Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate it. And also, in the sense, another way to word what you said is like, again, he defeated Gus, who defeated Lalo. So it's like rock, paper, scissors, right? It's like, it's like, but not, because it's more like, it's like, well, if Gus defeated Lalo and Walter defeated Gus, then Walter can defeat Lalo. It's just like kind of a chain of logic. So
right. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
The next
what else you got?
I got three more. Pinhead versus Freddy Krueger.
That's like a difficult one for me because I'm not like I'm not entirely familiar with the extent of these characters' powers. But what I do have to say is that it seems that for Freddy, you have to the way that they always defeat him is because they cease to be scared of him.
Yeah.
And people come to the realization that they have power over their own dreams, and that in their own dreams they can be powerful and take him down. So because of that, just because of how this guy always gets foiled, I'm gonna give it to Pinhead.
Yeah, because
although I'm not entirely sure of what Pinhead's powers are.
Well, yeah, because Pinhead's like not afraid of jack shit, like that's the thing with him. So it's really hard. And Pinhead is, he's like this, he's basically like a sorcerer, he's like, can move shit with his mind and like teleport and stuff. So if he has powers outside of dreams, he would definitely have powers like in his dreams if he even sleeps. Which,
if he even sleeps.
Yeah, and what you said is true, because it's like so much of this requires you to add in the context that makes sense, right? Because like with the Lalo versus Walter thing, you have to look at, unless it's like superhero battles, you can't just go off brute force. You have to look at the context, right? So it's like, well, the context with Lalo versus Walter White is that Lalo would find Walter White super valuable, right? Like, you have to look at it in that way. And it's the same thing with this. Like, what's the context? And I think you put that really well. Like, Freddy usually has power over you because you're afraid of him, right? So I agree. Pinhead, I can't recall a single moment in any of the Hellraiser movies that I've seen where Pinhead approaches a remote sense of fear, like, whatsoever. So yeah, I think Freddy gets smoked. I agree.
I think he gets smoked.
Yeah.
He's just an old slashy dude. He's all burnt up and he has like knives for fingers. So he's not like, at the end of the day, it's like even when you take him physically for what he is, he's not gonna Pinhead's still gonna take him,
Yeah.
So
he got fucked up by Jason too. Jason fucked him up.
He did.
Jason won. It was clean. It was clear cut. Like they had that little wink at the end of the movie, but Jason won that battle.
They did, yeah.
I mean, once Freddy was outside the nightmare realm, it's done. Okay.
It was never versus between those two characters because Jason was always going to win. Jason's like this, like zombie. Like Freddy was never gonna win that battle.
Yeah.
It was a silly thought experiment, that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was. Next I got this one is more like brute strength. Superman versus Thor.
Superman. Actually, Thor.
Think so? Because he's got his
Yeah, because
hammer.
from what I understand, and this is gonna be a little bit of a nerd, I guess, element to this.
Yeah.
But from what I understand,
We're just Sheldon and
from what
Leonard
I
at this
understand,
point.
Superman. Yeah, from what I understand, Superman is weak to magic.
Is that
If
right?
I'm remembering this, if I'm like thinking about this right, and if he is weak to magic, then Thor should win because Thor is a magic man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if he isn't weak to magic, then Superman should win.
Holy shit. I'm looking at this now. This is on CBR.com. Superman has already beaten Thor. How do you like that, Edward?
He has?
Yeah. Is that because
Huh.
they've done DC Marvel crossovers. This is what I'm reading here. Despite all evidence to the contrary, Superman soundly defeated Thor when the two heroes actually faced one another. Their most meaningful interaction came when the Marvel and DC universes collided in Kurt so-and-so's Avengers in 2003. Oh, Justice League Assemble versus Avengers in 2003. At the end of that crossover's first issue, Thor hurled his hammer into Superman's face as the League and the Avengers confronted one another. Full-on battle. The fight between Superman and Thor took center stage. They pushed themselves to the limit. Thor withstood the full might of Superman's heat vision. They traded blows, but when Thor tried to knock Superman out with his hammer, Superman turned the tables and put down the God of Thunder with one punch. I don't know about that.
Okay, I guess that kind of settles it a little bit. I looked it up, and it says Superman isn't weak to magic, but he says he has no weaknesses to magic, even though it can hurt him. Magic doesn't work like kryptonite or the red sun when it comes to Superman, as those objects weaken him. However, magic attacks do not do that to Superman. So basically, magic can hurt him, but it can't actually make him weak. So it basically he just remains impervious anyway, even though it like actually physically makes him feel pain.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't know
So
though.
that being
That
said,
seems like a
that's
John
yeah,
Cena move, though, defeating Thor with one punch. You know what I mean? It's like, okay.
it is.
I'm going. I would agree with you though, despite that one story, because it's just one story. I would say, just based on my familiarity with both characters, it's hard to say because Superman just has such a presence where it's just like that guy just seems so fucking invincible. I feel like if you look at cinema, all of cinema, the amount of times you've seen Thor in a position of vulnerability outweighs the number of times you've seen Superman in a state of vulnerability.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because Superman, technically, he is just like a god, and I think there's like comics of his where he canonically has basically become like a god.
Yeah,
because it basically just depends on like how much power he's willing to exert and like how like his proximity to the sun. Like there's like battles in which like the opponent has just set him directly into the sun, and then he's just become like basically God. Like his power is just elevated. So I think Superman is just too much.
I agree.
Because of just like there's no defeating that character. He's literally a god. Like that guy literally is a god. Whereas Thor also literally is a god.
Literally a god.
But Thor it's literally a god. More so than Superman. Thor literally is a god. But Thor, it's weird because that guy like seldomly feels that way. Like his character so often feels like so malleable, especially in those especially because Marvel I feel like really nerfed him like really hard.
Yeah.
Like in those movies,
well, he even gets fat at one point.
Exactly, and they have him like jump out to Thanos.
Yeah.
Like so much. Thanos just owns him in that movie. Kills his spoilers. Spoilers for Infinity War. Spoilers for the big Shrek movie. but Purple Shrek, kills Loki, and he like defeats Hulk and completely evaporates Thor. So they I feel like they just like I feel like they just like make that character so small in those movies. And from what I understand, they like transferred his powers to like Natalie Portman. So now he's not even Thor anymore. So it's like,
Yeah.
what is the idea with the character? I thought that he was like, he was born the god of thunder. I thought that that was who he was, but he felt always like kind of weak, you know. So
I agree. I
and even
agree
in
because
and
if
even
you
in
look
that
at
Taika
like the,
Waititi movie that happens like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like looking at it from a because not only physical and power level, but also just mindset. Like, there's no version of Superman that has ever and probably will ever. Like, you would hear outrage if Superman ever became as big of a goofball as Thor became, as like a
Mhm.
butt of the joke as Thor became, as malleable or a fat guy, right? Like fat with like a beer gut. You know, like if
Yeah,
any of
yeah.
those things happened, people would be completely outraged and would shun it. Where it was like more controversial with Thor, but people kind of ran with it. And
Mhm.
that goes to say that the reason people wouldn't accept that with Superman is because that character just has that, like, that perseverance, right? That, like, pushing through that discipline. He's that all American boy kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah, he's got a galaxy brain. He's a smart man.
yeah, I would say he's got like the mindset over on Thor, you know, especially if we're
Yeah,
looking at like the
yeah. So
MCU,
I
the
give
movie versions of the characters. Yeah.
yeah. So no, I give it to him. I give it to Superman. I don't think Thor can take.
Yeah, I agree. All right, last one. This is a battle. This is more of a battle of wits. But this is
Mhm.
Eric Cartman versus Stewie Griffin.
Stewie.
I agree. I agree.
I don't even have to think about that one because Stewie's a genius. He invented time travel. So
Yeah.
I give it to Stewie. Yeah.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like Stewie. So let's even take away, like, let's ground them both in like the same universe, right? So like they are on more
Mhm.
equal footing. So maybe even take away like Stewie's time travel abilities, right? And like Cartman has done some diabolical shit, and he's got one over on people. Namely, but the biggest one is like Scott Tenorman, right? Like he orchestrated that whole
Right.
thing. But I feel like that's the only episode that actually, the only one that I can think of, excuse me, where like Cartman
Mhm.
actually comes out on top. Like just looking at their characters, right? Stewie's the butt of the joke in some later Family Guy episodes, but Stewie generally in like you said, time travel episodes, like with Brian and the multiverse and all that shit, like Stewie figures shit out. Like whenever him and Brian are in like a pickle, it always ends with Stewie being like, "Oh fuck, like I actually have this idea. Like this is," and he gets them out of the situation. Like he's like the
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
Rick of their Rick and Morty duo, where he's like, "Okay, this," and where I feel like Cartman is always like the joke with him is he's always falling short. Like his plans are genius, but
Mhm.
he
Yeah.
fails. He fails to like follow all the way through to the end, right? Like the
Mhm.
Casa Bonita
Mhm.
episode, right? Like his plan
Mhm.
almost works, but then he fails. He always
Yes.
fails to account for like one last detail, and it like gets fucked up.
Mhm.
You know, like the Casa
Mhm.
Bonita episode, they
Mhm.
find Butters. He doesn't account for that like the refrigerator might get taken to the dump, and Butters can get out, and then he'll be found, right? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so I agree. Stewie wins because Cartman is always falling
But
short. Cartman he does
but
not think about the end game. He's too impulsive.
also because there is that episode, or there's like that character in Family Guy that's basically like the opposite of Stewie. Like he's like the other like
Bertram.
big brain smart kid, and Stewie defeats him. So it's like even when they introduce a character like him to go against him, Stewie owns him.
It's like his
So because of
half
that, I
brother,
stay
right?
with yeah,
Is that the one you're
yeah.
talking about? The one with the red hair?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah, Bertram. You're right.
yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
I feel like that deserves pointing
Yep.
out.
Yep. I agree. I think we agreed on all those verses. I don't think there was
Yeah,
maybe I need to crank it up a little bit next week, make some more, try to
I'll come up with a few examples for next time.
yeah. Yeah. But I think it still led to some interesting conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the Walter versus Lalo one. I think that was a fun one for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting to think about that. But yeah, Walter fucks him up. Lalo
Well,
gets close, but Walter fucks him up, I would say. It's
yeah,
kind of fun. It reminds me a little
yes.
bit of that Deadliest Warrior show on Spike. Did you ever watch that? That was fun.
Uh, I've heard the name, but I didn't watch it.
I used to watch that. It was like a versus show. They'd pit two like historical armies against one another. So like one you had, I think it was like the Mongols versus uh the Musketeers or something like that. And then in another
Mm,
episode you had like uh you know Napoleon's army versus uh the Revolutionary Army, just shit like that. And they would like have experts in both show up and they would pit them against each other in terms of like these weapons and those weapons and you know who has the better sword, who has the better rifle, who has the better this and that, right? And then it's like who has the better ranged weapons, and then they'd run it all through a simulation, and then at the end they'd have like a whole scene where they'd like play it out, right, and see who
mm,
wins, who's
mm.
the deadliest warrior. That was a fun show. That was fun.
Yeah,
But
but
anyway, I think it's time. Did you have anything else you wanted to go into before we did recaps?
no, I say that we do jump into the recaps. Mine's just gonna be very short because unlike last week, I have not watched any movies,
Dude, me
and
neither.
I have stayed listening. I've stayed listening to fucking Future.
Oh shit!
So,
Wow.
so I'm gonna
Futures in your
basically.
future. Holy shit.
Future has been in my future, dude. Like I've not been like very happy. So I'm gonna speed through these. Because since last week, I think last week was it last week? Did we talk about Super Slimy last week, or was that just over text messages that we talked about?
Nah, it was over text messages.
Okay, so over the past week, I listened to Super Slimy, so that's where I picked up. Because the last one that I talked about last week was Hendrix, the one with the coming out strong song with The Weeknd in it. Listen to Super Slimy with Young Thug, and an interaction that Jake and I had over text messages about this album is that this album sounds like every other hip hop album that has been on the mainstream has sounded since this album came out in 2017.
Yeah, this
Like
album was
it
like
just
one of the
sounds as
early, like basic generic. Throw
yeah,
it together,
exactly.
reheat
Yeah,
it, throw it out there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It just sounds like very nondescript hip hop. It just sounds like every Gunna album, like every Little Baby album. It just sounds like everything. It sounds like everything that's come out since then. The song No Cap still kind of a little bit of a highlight, and the song All That. And I know that Jake particularly mentioned that he liked Killed Before in this album by Young Thug.
What'd you think of that one?
But Killed Before, I thought it was alright. It was interesting because it's just Young Thug. Like Future's not in that song, and I thought it was a very interesting performance. Like Young Thug is 100% the highlight of this album because he brings a lot of like vocal, he brings a lot of vocal shit, a lot of interesting vocal performances, and Future just does his Future thing. So definitely Young Thug was a highlight, and definitely that song I think is the best Young Thug song in the album, and it's starred, so I think it's like one of the popular songs. But for me, this was like a 4 out of 10 album, like very mediocre, very forgettable. I can't remember what any song sounds like, honestly, other than the ones that I mentioned. Um, I did not listen to Beast Mode 2, did not give a fuck. Because I didn't care about Beast Mode 1, so I didn't want to listen to Beast Mode 2 because whatever, Zaytoven's played out anyway. Everybody played him out before he had the chance to do so himself.
To play us out.
I
What does that mean?
listened.
Play us out. To end the
I
show?
listened to I listened to the World on Drugs with Juice World, and I have actually nothing to say about that album. I am not a fan of Juice WRLD. Like, obviously, I'm not going to spill kill on the man. He's passed away, and I do believe that he was a very talented fellow. But his music never really like clicked with me, and I'm not a big fan of this album thematically because I don't care about the subject matter. Like, I don't care about the subject matter at all, and that's been like my biggest grief with Future. Where initially, when he came out, with Honest and with Monster, you know, initially when he came out, he was kind of a despicable man because he would talk about being a bad man to women. Specifically, he was a bad man to like the women in his life, but he would talk about the bad things that he would do to them with no remorse, and he would paint those women as the victim of their own problems. Like basically, he would basically try to say something along the lines of, "I did these things, and I'm not at fault because it's just who I am, and you're at fault for not being cool with who I am." And that was like a big thing of Monster. It was like, this is just who I am. I'm this bad person, and I'm not gonna take responsibility for anything that I do. And that was interesting. And I feel like that's why that album has aged so well, because it's an interesting thing that he's doing. He's being so toxic.
Yeah.
He's being such a toxic man. And in just completely taking no responsibility for action. Such a toxic fellow, and that's an interesting approach. But with DS2 onward, his music became drugs. It just became, I do Xanax, I do oxycodone, I do this, that, and the other thing. I just do drugs.
That's all it's
Music
about.
became I do drugs.
That's all he
But
raps
in
about is
DS2,
drinking lean. That's it.
exactly. And in DS2, it kind of still was a little bit of like, okay, I can enjoy this because the hooks are so good. The hooks are so good, and the performances are so fun,
Yeah.
and the beats were so refreshing at the time that I can still enjoy this. And obviously, when he made Purple Rain, he just doubled down because Purple Rain is just talking about doing lean, and doing so much lean that when he pisses, the lean comes out of his piss and it's purple. So it's like with Purple Rain, it was a little bit funny, but with these albums, it's just completely like obnoxious. And not only obnoxious, but dude, like I can't listen to this. Like I can't get through these songs. Like I really can't because it's just like, well, that guy passed away, because of this, you
Yeah.
know. And here these guys are like rapping about it in a way that is very encouraging.
Yeah.
They're making these things seem like very like positive and very like, oh yeah, I'm doing this and I'm the shit. But it's like, no, you're a loser. And the guy that you did this album with, he passed away because of
it.
this.
Yeah.
So this album to me, dude, this album was unlistenable. You could not listen to it. You
Really?
couldn't get
World
through
on
it,
Drugs.
honestly.
I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I just when I listen to like Future and Juice World, I just don't. Not so much Juice World, like on his regular albums, his subject matter is interesting to me. It's very just emo and
Mhm.
shit. And there's like there's a mood for that. That's a vibe. Um, but the I don't know, man. Like I just don't. Personally, I just don't care really about the subject matter, especially like with Future. I'm just like, unless the lyrics are
Mm.
egregious. Like again, for me with music like that, lyrics, it's like a threshold thing for me, where it's like, okay, if it's like too stupid or too ignorant, or you're saying something too cringy, like I've mentioned it before, like Kevin Gates hits that threshold for me sometimes, where he just says really cringy lyrics about just weird stuff, and
Mhm.
I'm just kind of like, this is weird. Not all the time. I like him as an artist, but for me, it's like a threshold
Mhm.
thing. I guess it hit your threshold with the subject matter.
Yes. And so then I follow this up with Future 100%'s The Wizard, and this was his 2019 album. And honestly, this album was not bad. Never Stop, Jumping on a Jet, Temptation, Crushed Up, Promise You That. Like, there's good songs here. The album is 20 fucking tracks long, and it's
Yeah, it's
over an hour
long.
long. So, but this it feels a little bit more motivated. Like he's not sleepwalking through this one.
Yeah.
Um, I would give this one like a 5 out of 10. Honestly, I don't think it was horrible. I thought it was mediocre, but it wasn't horrible. There were songs in there that were enjoyable. But it's like the beginning of for him. It's the beginning of the I have to make albums for Spotify and for the algorithm, so I'm gonna make hour-long albums.
Yep.
And obviously, that's where my personal hell starts with these fucking things.
Well, is there
Um,
is there any of those albums that you can think of where they're playing the streaming game? Has one of those albums become memorable? They're all
no,
forgettable. No matter the artist, whether it's Future, Ray Shremmer did it, like any artist who's doing that, the album never is like a hit or a classic or anything.
and that was the thing with me, because then interestingly enough, with Future, he also released an EP that exact same year, and the EP is called Save Me, and it was released in 2019, and it's only 7 tracks, 20 minutes. So he kind of like did that whole fucking bullshit ass hour-long piece of shit that he did, and not piece of shit, but not good looking shit, and and or rather good looking shit, but shit nonetheless. And then he released Save Me, which is an EP, 7 tracks long. Opens with Xanax Damage. So it tells you
Of
a little bit of
course.
how I feel about this fucking album. And he gets like a little bit more introspective and like a little bit sad in this album, if you can even say that about this guy. But the album sucks. I mean, not the album, the EP. 7 tracks, sucks. 20 minutes, sucks. The only good thing here is Please Tell Me. So like 4 out of those 20 minutes are good because Please Tell Me is pretty good. That's where I left off. I still have on my queue before I'm done with Mr. Future. I still have High on Life, which is a 21 track, hour and 10-minute album. And I still have the newest one because I'm not listening to the bullshit thing he did with
It's
Lil
Uzi.
Uzi Vert. I'm not listening to Pluto and Baby Pluto. I'm not listening to that bullshit. That thing's 24 tracks long, an hour and a half. I'm not listening to that.
I like Drinking and Smoking.
But
That's a good song.
I might listen to like the starred songs just to see what's going on because Drinking and Smoking and Patek are the only ones, and I've already listened to Patek anyway. Um, so I'll listen to High on Life and I'll listen to I Never Liked You, and then I'll be done with this man. But suffice it to say, after the first couple of albums that he released, everything has been bad or mediocre at best.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, little fun fact to throw in: Drinking and Smoking. I just remembered it's produced by 12 Hunna, who is a very frequent Chief Keef collaborator. Um,
Mm.
Produced the entire Nobody album. But anyway, yeah, that sounds like hell, man. I wish you luck on your journey into the future and beyond.
Yeah, to the future and beyond. The beyond part is what I'm looking forward to. But all of that being said, what have you got for a recap, my man?
Well, surprisingly, I actually didn't watch any movies this past week besides the movie of the week. So there's that. But I did watch a little bit of television. Actually finished
Mhm.
two TV shows. So it was like a double whammy, a freaking like, you know, two kicks to the two kicks to the nuts, so to speak, where it's just like, oh fuck, this show's over. Actually, just when you finish a
Mhm.
show, it's like so sad, man. But um, first and foremost, the more current show, very current, Barry, just complete. Barry, the
Mhm.
series finale premiered last
Mhm.
week, and it's so hard, man, to end a TV series. Like you really gotta, it is so difficult to end a TV series where you feel like it would be satisfying because you've just been with characters. With a movie it's different because you've only been with these characters for 2 hours, and so the stakes are lower. You
Mhm.
have, but with a TV series you've been with the characters for 60 hours, right? 100 hours in some cases, right? Like you have to, the stakes are just so much higher. What I will say with Barry is it's not exactly the ending that I wanted, but it was somewhat satisfying, and it left me with a lot to think about. It did. And it wasn't by any means like anticlimactic or anything. It was very climactic. Very climactic. It just went in a couple of directions with a couple of characters that I was kind of surprised by. Not necessarily in a bad way, just very unexpected ways that it wasn't, it wasn't like, the whole like, the person who shall not be named killing the, Night King, say, in Game of Thrones. It wasn't that level of like, what the fuck? But it was like, oh, okay, that's, that's weird, right? A couple of twists that were surprising, but overall, man, Barry, yeah, the final episode of Barry gave me quite a bit to think about. But I don't want to spoil anything for anyone out there, who hasn't seen it yet. Go watch it. Check out Barry. It's a great show. Bill Hader does an awesome job. You could tell he really loves film. He's someone who loves film. He's a fellow, he's a massive movie buff. People know him really well as a comedian, but he's a massive movie buff. And you could tell he has so much passion for, cinema with the way he films Barry and the way he's one of the creators of Barry. And, just the execution in Barry is really well done. The camera work's awesome. The action, their use of silence in a lot of the action scenes is really good for comedic effect as well. And just the black comedy in that show is really good. It's very violent and dark in its final season. Takes on a very dark tone, but still somehow keeps it somewhat light and keeps the comedy there. It doesn't jump the shark, so it very much felt like an appropriate end game. So overall, really enjoyed it. And then not so current. I'm late to the party on this, but I finished Mr. Robot as well.
Yeah,
that TV series.
That you were going to say that.
Yeah, and I posted it on our YouTube channel. Just my kind of initial reactions to it, and man, holy shit, dude! Mr. Robot had a very just powerful kick in the balls ending. Just massive payoff. Like if you want to talk about payoff and like plant and payoff, the entire fucking series up until the final episode was just one big Chekhov's gun. And the final episode was the firing of Chekhov's gun. The way they pulled that off was just fucking amazing. You look back on the whole series and you're like, oh my God, everything was building up to this moment. And it explores these crazy, just Jungian and Freudian kind of psychological themes. And just the way they explore mental illness in that show is inspired. And the fucking emotional gut punch of the final episode, dude. I mean, I was just swallowing back a lump in my throat at just how it was, like, just how sad yet profound that final episode was. It was quite something, man. What I will say about Mr. Robot overall is I've never seen a TV show, right? Because you have say two cop shows, right? The Wire and The Shield, right? Take those two, for example. The Wire is the study of a society, right? It's the study of a system. It's social commentary. The Shield is the study of a man, a thumb, a bald man, but of the Thing. And they do what they do. They're in separate, they have different goals. What I'm trying to say is that Mr. Robot is both an inspired character study as well as an extremely inspired social commentary. And it's not even like half and half or they balance them. They somehow just interweave the two where it's like they just do 100% both. And I don't know how they did it, but it's like just as much a commentary on the self and psychology and this protagonist. It's just as much of a character study as it is a social commentary piece, a piece of social commentary. Like it is. I've never seen anything like that before, right? Because you even look at something like you look at something like Breaking Bad, and Vince Gilligan has gone on record saying like any social commentary you pick up in Breaking Bad is incidental, right? This was the study of a man. This was a character study, you know. But Mr. Robot did both, and I've never seen that done to such an extent before. Incredible show.
What show?
What'd you say?
What would you give that show?
Mr. Robot?
Mm-hmm.
I would say Mr. Robot is probably a 9 out of 10, man. I think there's a little bit that bumps in the second season that doesn't quite work, but overall as a whole, that shows a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
I would say. And just to show how relatively speaking, like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are 10s, Hannibal's a 10, The Boys is a 10 for me. Like Mr. Robot's a 9, just because it's like there's parts of it that are imperfect, but overall just incredible.
Okay. Huh. Okay.
Yep. In that, that's my recap.
Hey, so us being recapped and the audience being all capped, what do you say that we talk about the movie of the week?
Let's do it. Sounds excellent. Dude. Because the movie of the week is the classic 80s comedy Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Bill and Ted, or more so Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah. Give us your thoughts, Edward. What'd you think?
Well, it was interesting. I had never seen this movie. Have you seen this movie?
No. It's my first rodeo as well.
So, no, I've never seen this film, although I had heard of it for ages. I had seen like clips here and there because it would randomly play on TV, and I know that there's like 3 of them because I know they made a second one, and I know they made a third one like recently, like a few years ago. A third one came out. It was an interesting film. I liked the music for sure. It was an interesting film. I really laughed at the very beginning of the film when they went to school. There was like an actual like laugh out loud moment that I had with the movie when they went to school and the teacher pulls them aside after the class and he's like, you guys are gonna fail the class. And if you fail the class, you're not passing like the grade. And then he goes, because you said that Napoleon is, what is it? What did he say? I wrote it down, like specifically the lines that they said.
A short dead guy.
Give me 1 second. He said, shit, where is it at? Yeah, Napoleon is a short dead dude. And Ted said Caesar is a salad dressing, dude. So when that happened, I was like really laughing out loud. And obviously the premise of this film is that if they fail this test, it's gonna have like such a horrible ripple in time. It's gonna alter a future that is excellent. It's like the best future ever. Even the dirt is clean, according to George Carlin. And so because of that, they sent George Carlin back in time to help Bill and Ted with their history assignment for their oral presentation. Um, I had fun with it. I thought it was a nice old film. I thought it was a nice old film. It very much felt like of its time.
Yeah.
And I was impressed and surprised with how much they were actually able to do.
Yeah. The amount of CG in this film is actually surprising given the time period. You wouldn't
Yes.
think, but they actually use it quite a bit, which was,
Yes.
very surprising.
This is an 80s film. This film came out in 89. By the time the time of the movie takes place in 88, but the movie came out in 89.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about Bill and Ted? One thing that I noticed was not so much something that was in the movie, but something that's not in the movie. Now, in buddy
Mhm.
comedies, what happens at the end of the second act in every buddy comedy?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was not in this movie. You're right. Until you said that, I did not realize that. There usually is a
I
moment
just
where they
realized
cease
it.
to be friends
Yeah.
and they split up and they have a big argument. Bill and Ted are not those guys.
Yeah. Nope. They stick together the whole time, which honestly, that part of that is like hopeful, right? Because instead, and I'm kind
Mhm.
of glad about, I was kind of glad, I was kind of happy with that because it was like they made it more interesting where instead it was like, fuck, we got to go round up all of the, the
Mhm.
historical figures so we can go get to our, presentation. It was like just a final big, massive complication, a massive like wrench um, in their plan, and yeah, I thought that was way more, and obviously back then it hadn't become as much of a trope, but I'm sure it was still
Mhm.
around. And I was glad they didn't go in that direction. However, I do think that Bill and Ted themselves, while they were funny and they're fun to, spend an hour and a half with, they're very stock. They're very stock
Yes.
characters. I mean, there's not really much
Mhm.
nuance to them. There's a little more nuance to
Yeah.
like a Harold and Kumar, or uh,
Yes.
Bill and Ted.
Yes.
There wasn't so much. There wasn't. It was more external conflict, right? So like in Harold and Kumar,
Yeah.
especially that first one, White Castle, like it's mostly Harold's movie. Um,
Mhm.
Harold's the Asian guy, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Just crossing my T's. Harold, it's mostly his movie because
Mhm. He
his
has a
whole
goal.
right, because they have the external conflict, right, of like getting to White Castle, but then he has like the internal, like the whole, I got to stand up for myself, kind of that kind of arc, right, and start. I
Mhm.
got to grow a pair, basically, is like his arc, right? Because then he asks the
Mhm.
chick out in the
Mhm.
elevator and all that shit, right? They don't really have that in Bill and Ted. They don't give them as much nuance, and
No.
I think the movie's missing that, and I think for that reason the movie becomes a little bit tedious, especially by the time they time
Mhm.
travel for like the, you know, fifth or sixth time. You're just like, okay, this is like all just external kind of,
Mhm.
conflict, and you know, making a movie that's purely mostly external conflict or really all external conflict. Again, there wasn't really that I could detect internal conflict in this.
Mhm.
A movie that's
No.
all
No.
external. Yeah, I've rarely seen a movie that's all external conflict that can really hold my attention the entire time and really I don't know. I feel like any good movie, any like movie that remains entertaining the entire time and interesting the entire time is a movie that has internal conflict, whether it be the most serious
Mhm.
Oscar-winning, picture or the goofiest of stoner comedies. I think you got to have internal
Mhm.
conflict in there. I really do. Uh,
Mhm. No,
and
I agree with you because that to me was like kind of like one of the biggest things like working against the film
yeah,
that I was just kind of okay, it's cool, but Bill and Ted are just one note characters. Like
yeah,
they just have one note. They don't ever fluctuate outside of that. Neither of them has anything that they want outside of just passing the class so they can go back to playing guitar.
yeah. They're
So
not
there's
even
that element of the
distinct.
film that the film just
They're similar to each
no,
other.
you could flip them. Yeah,
Yeah,
you could exchange them. Yeah, they're not even foils to one another. They're the same character.
Yeah.
They are the exact same character. It's just this character is that character, and here they are. Um, so in a sense, when you think about how different the movie is to other baddie like films, it's interesting. But in execution, it does leave a lot to be desired because you just kind of keep, there's an element of me that felt that way, where I was just like, oh, I wish there was a little bit more to this film. But at the end of the day, I feel like the film is still enjoyable for what it is because
Yeah.
it's just what it is. And at the very beginning of the film, I had that realization. I was like, these are exactly the same guy. And they say the same things. They go, and they do the little the air guitar shit, and like, cool. It seems like Bill has a little bit more sense than Ted does. It's like Ted is a little bit more hollow than Bill,
Yeah.
like because it seems like Bill has like more to him in terms of being like, oh, the guy's a little bit smarter than the other guy, but just like a tiny bit, just like a tiny, tiny bit. To be the one that comes up with the solution sometimes, like when he calls his dad from outside of the booth and shit. It's like he has a little bit of sense to him, but he's just as big of an idiot as Keanu Reeves. But he's not. But he's a little bit smarter. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, I didn't like those little like back in time things very much. Like, because at some point it just became gimmicky.
Yeah, it did.
And this movie kind of reminded me of scripts that we read fourth and third year of film school because some of our peers would write movies like this, and
They
props to
would.
them. It's enjoyable. Um, but this the movie became tedious because when they were getting Freud and Joan d'Arc, and when they were all doing all these things, it just felt like bits that were written and that the writers refused, vehemently to get rid of those bits. They were like, no, these bits are hilarious. You'll see. But in watching the movie, I was just kind of like, I don't care anymore about the gathering of the historical figures. Like, I couldn't care. I couldn't care anymore. Like when they got to Genghis Khan and he was like
Ugh.
making out with the women, and I was like, okay, whatever. Um, and I didn't care for seeing the historical figures engage in like shenanigans in modern times. I didn't care for that either. I actually had more fun when they were cleaning their house, and Bill and Ted had to like manage them cleaning the house.
Yeah, it was like a
I had more
Clockwork
fun with the movie
Orange
then.
homage. That was like a
Yeah,
nod to Clockwork Orange. I felt
yeah,
like that scene. They even had the
yeah. So
same
I liked
song, I
that,
think.
and I liked that, and I liked what they did with Napoleon. They just had Napoleon on his own, really enjoying being at a water park. But yeah, after they kind of gathered everybody and they introduced the next obstacle of being like, oh, now they're in jail, we have to get them out of jail. Like by that point, I just couldn't wait for them to do the presentation. I was just like, come on, guys, let's get to the presentation. And the presentation, it was fun to watch, but it was it was just kind of like, okay, cool, they triumphed. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I to kind of expand upon what you're saying too, like I feel like ironically the best parts of this movie were the parts where they in present times when they weren't time traveling. Like I actually thought
Yeah.
like the time travel stuff while it was excellent set design and costume and very inspired like, visually, I actually thought it
Mhm.
was really uninspired, like the execution of a lot of the time
Yeah.
period stuff. They could have done a lot. It felt very
Yeah.
lazy, like the stuff with Genghis Khan, the stuff with the castle and the princesses, and then the
Yeah,
Socrates
because
thing
it just
particularly felt very
yeah.
lazy. Felt
No, the
very lazy.
Socrates part, that was like, I thought that was actually quite bad. Because
Yeah.
the problem with the movie with the time travel stuff is that it just takes the most obvious approach,
Yeah.
which it just goes like, what would happen if we go to see Billy the Kid? And it's like, oh, he's gonna storm in and be like, I'm Billy the Kid, and the bartender's gonna be like, oh, that's Billy the Kid. It's like every time it just played out in the most obvious way. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, definitely.
so
Yeah, I agree with that. And so, despite all that, like middle, the second act, like really starting to lag. Once you get to the third act with
mm,
everybody being, jailed and everything, I thought it really picked up. They started playing around with some time loop kind of stuff, which I liked the little
mm.
mind fuckery there because it was like, oh shit, I guess if
Yeah,
you
that was
have
fun.
the idea to and you say, I'm going to, you know, give myself this in the future, then it's like, well, if I decide that and that truly is my decision and that will happen, then hey, fuck yeah, then shit, I guess we got what we need,
Yeah,
right? But it did kind of make
yeah,
sense, you know. I was really glad they skipped showing them have to do that. I was like, okay, no more complications, please. The
yeah,
presentation's over. Like,
yeah.
let the movie
Exactly.
be done.
Because no, because by that exactly by that point, I was just done with the complications. I was really done with the complications, and I appreciated that in that way, despite the whole exposition, issue that movies have. In that way, I appreciated them just cutting from the presentation to them in the garage and Ted just being like, "Oh, I'm so great that we got A's,
Yeah,
excellent." I was like, "That's like good. I didn't need to see it happen. It's great that you're just telling me because that way, where the movie can end."
yeah, I agree. What's your rating of Bill and Ted's Excellent
I
Adventure?
give I give Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure a known bogus, very excellent 5 out of 10 for Bill and Ted.
Okay, I got you. I would give Bill and Ted. I would give them a 6, because of the charm and the warmth of this film was just enough to make me smile and give it an extra point for
Yeah.
me. So, you know,
um,
6 out of 10,
Keanu Reeves
three
thought,
stars out of 5.
yeah, for me it's 2.5 out of 10 out of 5. 5 out of 10. I thought I had a nice time. The movie obviously has heart to it. Funnily enough, Keanu thought that when he died, they were going to write in his tombstone. They were going to write, "Here lies Keanu Reeves. He played Ted."
Oh, because he thought it was like done at that point. Yeah, because this was
Mhm.
like one of his early roles. Was this his breakout role?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, no, he
I
thought
definitely
like
haven't seen him in a younger in any roles. So that should, yeah.
yeah. No, he thought that he thought this movie, because this movie was huge. So, and they kind of started typecasting him, and obviously he wasn't the sequel to the movie, A
Yeah.
Bogus Journey. So because of that, he kind of thought, he was like, "I'm done." He was like, "My career. This is just what my career is." But good for him, because that obviously did not stop him. His career has been excellent.
Oh yeah, Mr. Wick.
But apparently, they say the word "dude" 70 times in the movie and the word "excellent" 30 times.
Okay. Okay. Huh, interesting. It didn't feel like they said excellent that much. That 30 times. They said it a lot, but now, dude, I thought it was more than that. Honestly, they said that quite a bit.
Apparently, it was only 70 times. They said that quite a bit. I feel like every piece of dialogue that they had ended with "dude," or at least began with it.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But this movie has a bunch of trivia, but that's really the two ones that thought were worth pointing out.
I like it. What you got for us next week, Edward?
Sir, I have
Oh boy.
nothing for next week. I'll let you, I'll let you
There
know.
it is.
I'll let you know what it is.
I could just smell that coming.
Yeah.
Well,
Because the
Edward,
thing
you've
is that
disappointed
I've
our
had
listeners.
I know, but I've had a film that I wanted us to watch, but it just hasn't felt like there's been like a good movie that we've seen the week prior for me to follow up with that one. So I'll leave that one in the shelves. I'll think about something that we can watch to follow up Bill and Ted. Ideally, something fun, because before that we were just watching movies like Enemy
Yeah.
and Primer. So I'm trying to keep us away from like the heady stuff for a little bit.
I got you. Get a good rhythm going. Nothing too
Yeah.
abrupt. I got you, man.
Yeah, I want it to be something that organically follows your idea.
Yep. All right, listener. Well,
So
listener, if you're if you're still here, listen. You've stopped working for 2 hours and 40 plus minutes now.
yeah,
Your feet are falling
yeah.
asleep because they're up on the desk. Your team's notifications are off. Your boss is wondering where you are. Get back to work. Don't get fired because show's over. Show's over. Get back to work. Do some actual work.
Hey, everybody! Next time on Film Tangents.